I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first item is math department presentation.
Mrs. Withy, do you want to introduce staff?
Yes. Okay.
Where are we going?
No, I'm just
Well,
gonna
I'll move over.
so I don't have to.
Karen, are you
turn
ready?
around like I did last
I
time.
know. Me too. Me too. I'm more paranoid with stairs. Stairs are afraid, always afraid of falls. Jamie Audley is our K1-2-3 math specialist, and Danielle Sands is our math specialist for grades 4 through 8. This is Danielle's first year. This is Jamie's 10th year. She was a first grade teacher, a third grade teacher, and then stepped into the math specialist role 3 years ago. I have my math. 4th year? Yeah, 4 years ago. So stepped into that role 4 years ago. Danielle and Jamie work with all of our staff, K through 8, on all things math. They run PLC meetings, they do coaching, they plan with teachers, they work with kids. So they are a wonderful part of our staff. And I will turn it over to them. They have done a wonderful presentation for you.
Thank you. Oops, sorry.
I'm gonna stand right here.
Yeah, sure.
And I'll click for here.
Sorry.
Oh, I
I'm
can-
just
I can move. No, no, I'll move.
situation,
I'll move.
so I'll just move as far to the side as I can. All right, well, you already introduced us, so we'll just skip that. So, our agenda for our presentation, we want to talk about just some updates, what we're doing right now at DCS, looking at data, a little bit about what's happening around DCS as far as our math curriculum, and what's next, where we are going from here. So just background, the curriculum was revised and approved in 2022. So that was my first year here in this position, and so that was done with Jen Schaefer. And then the competencies we updated last year. That was one of those things in reviewing our curriculum that we felt like needed updating. And so that was a 2-year-long process with the math committee, and then bringing it to the CRB, and then it was approved through CRB. And so last year it was revised. And so this is our first year in using these updated competencies. So we are currently in the mid-year cycle. So a lot of what we're doing right now is taking feedback and just getting samples from staff and looking at what's working and what has not been. You're going to see a little bit of that feedback coming up. With our curriculum committee, we've been working on updating our scope and sequences to make sure that they are aligning fully with the curriculum materials that we're using, along with our new competencies that we just updated. We are not using brisk login. So the K through 5 math program was Eureka, and I meant to put the date on there, but I believe we started that in 2017. And then we most recently moved to Eureka Math Squared, which is the latest iteration of Eureka. We piloted some last year in a first grade, a second grade, a third grade. Everyone did a little bit, honestly. And we had a lot of conversations with our math committee about the Eureka Math Squared. And then this year we went for full implementation, K through 5. Actually, I'll talk more about that moving forward. Kristen, if you don't mind. So what we found with this Eureka Math Squared is that with rewriting our curriculum, it was aligning much better as well with our curriculum as far as like the guiding principles, our essential environment, our essential actions, and the essential understandings. Some of those things we aligned to the mathematical practices, and I brought a couple manuals because they just show how well that they give that to teachers, right? So there's differentiation support, there's universal design for learning support, There's promoting mathematical standards on the side. So all of these things were essentially lining completely with our DCS curriculum. And there's a lot more discourse in it, which is something that we really wanted in our math classrooms. Yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, unless anybody wanted to see the curriculum. I did print one copy as well, but so we recently got some feedback from staff. So if you click once, Kristen. Yeah. So we asked teachers that this was, again, K through 5, but we also asked any case managers that wanted to give some input. And the first, or one of the questions we asked was about the rigor. And this one was a little more divided than the rest of it, but 9 out of the 15 said that they found it rigorous, right? A 4 or 5. And 6 found it kind of midway for the rigor. It's interesting in looking at that data a little more where it like kind of divides with like the grade levels. So, you know, it's just a difference in that grade level and expectations, I feel like, too.
Did you find that the people that found it more rigorous were the older grades or the younger grades?
The younger grades. It was kind of 50-50. It's just the younger grades, we found Eureka very rigorous, but almost to a flaw where it was not developmentally appropriate in a lot of ways. You know, Nancy knows. So this we found was a great middle ground in as far as that goes, and we'll look at a little more of that.
It's probably better in some cases to have it, the teachers feel a little more rigorous in the younger grades than to not be rigorous enough in the older
Right.
grades, right?
And I feel like it gives a lot of opportunity for differentiation as far as support and extension. So that I've noticed within the book and those teacher notes, right? And again, we're just doing it this year, so it's brand new to everyone, right? So a couple people piloted a couple of modules, but overall, it's new. We've done a lot of professional development on it. We've had great minds come in for a little bit, but we started this process last year too, as far as the professional development. So I think we're getting to know it still, you know, a new program. And then developmental appropriateness. Again, we're finding that most people find it developmentally appropriate, and that's where we were really struggling in the younger grades with like Eureka assessments. We loved Eureka. Like overall, people liked it. It just was, we were modifying a lot because, and we didn't mind doing it. Like it was not a problem per se, but it just, we had to do a lot of work to make the assessments feel attainable to the students, to make problem sets in kindergarten feel attainable. It just was too many words. There was a lot of things in that way that we were making rubrics. And so the developmental appropriateness of this is just like, it's picture cues, it's bigger font, it's larger space, it's color, like it's a lot more appealing to the kids and a lot more attainable for them because they can do more independently. If we expect them to circle something, there's a cue saying circle, right? You know, there's these things that just made it more appropriate for the majority of the kids.
I remember subbing in kindergarten and the math lesson that day was word problems. And the kindergartners couldn't read the word problem. So it was like, excuse me,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
A lot of the word
yeah.
problems now are they're verbal.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not on the paper.
Yeah, it was like,
So, yeah. So does Eureka Squared program sufficiently cover the DCS competencies? Overall, yes. So I think there's also a learning curve in that too, as far as making sure like we understand the DCS competencies and how that connects. So because Eureka Squared has something called ADs, or achievement descriptors. So it takes some work to look at those achievement descriptors and see how they connect to the competencies. And so they are laid out, but you have to find it. It's not just there as it was before, but they're there. And so we've created a lot of helpful documents for that. So it's not something you have to dig for. And do the Eureka Squared assessments allow students to demonstrate understanding of the DCS competencies? Overall, yes, again. And then rate student engagement, overall students are engaged. I mean, I think that's, again, I think Eureka Squared does a much better job of providing students with opportunities to talk, opportunities. They have a lot of low floor, high ceiling activities where everybody can access it in a way, and then they build on it through through collaboration. So, and then overall satisfaction is pretty good. So.
So similarly, we have big ideas in our 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. This is the second full year that we've used big ideas for those grades.
So
Advantages.
I'm sorry, big ideas is not Eureka though, right? Something completely
Correct,
different?
this
Okay.
is completely different, yes.
Okay.
Similar advantages to what Jamie was talking about. What is nice with big ideas, kind of the picture that you have here, is it has quite a bit built in for the teachers who work with older kids on how they can use manipulatives, how they can use pictorials and things that are not always included as you get into higher grades, but a lot of the kids still need. Some of the things that we're still exploring on how best to use, but Big Ideas has where Eureka did not. As for instance, they have for every lesson, there's an exit ticket type assessment where there's a few questions about the lesson, but the students themselves get to kind of rate, this is how much I understand it, you know? So either I'm really struggling, or I can do it with a little bit of help, or I feel really confident and I can teach other students. So it kind of helps the students follow along with their own understanding and their own learning, and puts it not fully back on them, but allows them to have that as they're getting older and they're maturing, and kind of take accountability for where they're struggling and when they need to ask for help, which is really nice.
Can I add one thing really fast?
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Just
You
because
were here last year.
Yes, yeah. So 3 years ago, we piloted Big Ideas, open up resource, and then they were using Eureka. So that's where that transition came from, was 3 years ago. And then last year was full implementation of Big Ideas, because they found the middle school teachers, along with the previous specialists, NCRB and math committee decided that that was what was going to help the students most. And then we did take a look at it as far as our Eureka models and what we teach in Eureka vocabulary, language, and how that looked. And it, I mean, because they're both Common Core aligned, it did align.
So staff feedback from Big Ideas. Overall, the staff was satisfied. No, this is 3 people, so the feedback comparatively to Eureka Squared, right? You need to keep that in mind. But overall, they were satisfied, especially comparing it to some of the programs they've used in the past. They think this one has been a much better program for them. Specifically, 100% feel that it covers the DCS competencies. It is very much aligned with Common Core, and so that was obvious. Similarly, 100% feel that the assessments allow students to demonstrate competencies. So that was a really positive thing. Developmental appropriateness was kind of in the middle. Some of this, especially as they get older, so for your question, there was a lot of discussion about just Common Core in general. And as the students get closer to algebra, sometimes we're introducing concepts that are maybe quicker than some students are ready to receive them developmentally. And so there's a lot of back and forth on, are we rating this lower because of the textbook and the curriculum itself, or is it just the standards that we have? And maybe we need to figure out what are things in the textbook that we're not utilizing as much to help those students who aren't quite there developmentally, right? Especially as we get into the 7th and the 8th grade.
And I think in 4th and 5th grade, one of the discussions was that there's not enough manipulatives.
Yes.
And so like where in the younger grades there are. So I think that's something where we are meeting with them. We're finding what manipulatives they use. We're finding those resources within the school and just making sure that they know what's available to and how to incorporate that in, right? Okay, great.
Rigor, kind of similar as the kids get older. For the ones that are ready for it, they are finding that they're having to find other ways to provide rigor, specifically giving students an opportunity to consistently show that they can be a level 4 when they're ready to be at a level 4. But still, even though these are areas that we're looking at, are we utilizing the book in the way that it's intended, or is this something that we need to figure out how we can add things? The teachers are finding it's much more supportive of our competencies and supportive of the levels that we have compared to what they've used in the past. And overall, they're very happy with it. Yep. Overall improvements in math instruction. So we're going to start vertical workspaces. So you can see this is just a student standing and working on a problem. This comes from professional development that we've done through Building Thinking Classrooms and Peter L. Jadal, which is a prominent figure in Canadian mathematics, but a lot of what he's done is trickling into the US. So vertical workspaces is the idea of getting students up out of their seats. They can either work independently or often with a group, which we have some pictures of that coming up too. And it's just helping them model through problems. The teacher's able to kind of get a quick look around the classroom to see like, okay, on every student's work if they're at the board versus when they're sitting down, it's a little bit trickier to get an idea. And then it really does promote discussion. So even if it is one student at a particular board, then oftentimes like another student will come over and evaluate with that student. Are there parts that you agree with? Are there parts that you disagree with? Why is that? And so it kind of ties everything we're doing with Eureka Squared and the discussions together. And we're doing that all the way up through the grades.
So you kind of hit on discourse a little bit, but I really do find this is actually a first grade classroom where there was, they pushed the tables together and did their lesson like that. It was awesome. Like the kids wanted to do math like that every day, right? So they loved it. And it's really just bringing a lot of that conversation into it. I did vertical workspaces with a group today that yesterday did the same thing, and I was building on it today, and they didn't want to leave my room today, right? Like they're like, oh, this was so much fun. I'm like, we did the same thing yesterday. So and they were talking to each other. And the idea with that is they have one pen. So they have to pass the pen back and forth. They have to discuss, they have to tell each other. It's so cool. I love it. And so in Eureka Squared, they have a lot of instructional routines that just really lend itself to discourse. So they have what's called a math chat. They have 5 framing questions. They have a which one doesn't belong. So they have to talk about these pictures and which one doesn't belong. And sometimes they all belong. So it's really cool to get them to talk about why one doesn't belong. So there's just a lot more opportunity for that in Eureka Squared.
Can I jump in on that too? Yeah, big idea is kind of same. It has a lot more opportunities for conversation. It's a little bit more traditional in that, where it might have like a turn and talk moment. So one of the things we've looked at though is the instructional routines from Eureka Squared that the students are getting in younger grades really does roll over into the discourse that's happening in upper grades. So even though it's using maybe different language by the time it gets to big ideas, we're working with the staff and the teachers to kind of use similar language. So even though, it might say turn and talk in the book, the teachers might say something different based on the instructional routines that students are getting in younger grades.
Access, as I discussed already, there's a lot of just tools for differentiation, whether it's support or extension. There's a lot of activities, as I said, that were, they have that low entry point, so everybody can feel success and then build off of one another's ideas. Open-ended tasks, there's the consistent models is so key to have for students, so that that's not something we're learning year after year. We have that consistent model. And then the manipulatives, which at the K through 3, I think we are pretty well supplied for manipulatives, and it's something that we're looking at for 4th and 5th as far as including more. Yep.
So assessments is an ongoing thing that we're doing here. And we really have been looking at calibrating scoring. And so as we're using different assessments, making sure that the way that one teacher might score it, especially thinking of competency-based grading, is similar to what another teacher would score it within the same grade, just to make sure that we're all understanding how the competencies work. We talked a little bit about this, but looking at aligning assessments to the competencies. So as we have rewritten them, making sure that the Eureka Squared, are completely aligned to the competencies that we have. So when teachers are grading with them, then they know exactly where to go. We're also have discussed it and haven't quite started. So this is a little out of place, but in the future, we're looking at having more official rubrics for students so that, especially in the older grades where they are kind of taking some of that ownership, they can look like, what is a 2, what is a 3? It's right there on the assessment. They know exactly what the teachers are looking for. And it makes it easier for the teachers too. Like, okay, if the student has a 2, what are the particular skills that they're missing that has caused them not to be able to get a 3? So that's kind of, like I said, ongoing thing. But yeah, that's where we're at with our assessments. We have our New Hampshire SAS scores. You can go ahead and click on that. So these are all on the DCS website. If you scroll down, we just wanted to give you a quick peek. So as you're looking, you can kind of start to see a pattern. So we can see that we were a little bit jumping in some of these years, but as we get up, we're a little bit more consistent. You can scroll down. So quite a lot of greens and blues. And then we are noticing as you get into the middle school, that is somewhat changing. So what we're trying to do is make sure that the younger students are getting the strongest foundation that they can. So as we're getting into harder skills and they're getting into more in-depth mathematical learning, they know how to apply it. And the programs that we have right now are supporting of that with the discussions we're having and making sure that students are all getting good chance to build that foundational understanding and help them as they're getting into harder concepts. Go back to the presentation. So iReady, we started using last year in 2023, 2024. This is our second year using iReady. We use it as a benchmarking tool to get an idea of how students are performing. We wanted to share this. This is kind of our performance from our winter benchmark as of right now. What's really positive, this is all of the math grades, and you can see they're all in that high category. The majority of our grades were high performance and high growth. We have 3rd and 4th grade were high performance, low growth. But when we looked at that, we believe it's because they came in and their first scores were higher comparatively when you looked at the other grades. So when you're close to, you're close to already understanding the grade level concepts, this is halfway through the year. So it's hard for them to have a big growth at this point if they've already understood some of it, right? So we're hoping, by the end of the year in the spring, these two will be up here as well. But you can see we've already got a good showing. Most of our grades are right where they need to be. They're scoring high. We're showing big growth across the board. So it's really positive.
How often do you do the iReady? Is that
That's 3 times a year.
3 times a year, so the beginning, the middle, and the end?
Kindergarten does it twice a year though.
Okay, and it's computer-based?
Yes.
So I guess we didn't really hit on that much. Our assessments, we do universal screeners for number sense in K through 5, which is a one-on-one interview assessment. And it's really finding a lot of foundational. And then we do iReady. And then in the upper grades, we use some dibbles, and then we have our module assessments.
Can I ask another question? When the kids take iReady, do you feel that they want to do well? Because
love iReady.
Okay,
It
because
is
I know a lot of
so
times with the
funny.
state testing, they
Yes.
could care less.
iReady is like, they think it's a game because there's these cute little like animated characters who are introducing it. They have built-in brain breaks. So it's similar to STAR where it does adjust based off of the way they're answering questions. But it's giving us more information, definitely. And we're still learning about all the reports, but it has some great reports. But the kids love it.
Does it give them any kind of feedback on how they've done?
It doesn't on that comes from us,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Like, I mean, we send parent reports home, but
I will say for the upper grades, it's they don't love it as much.
Yeah.
And sometimes the games.
Because the cute
can
little
kind of
character
feel
isn't what they
challenging.
want.
Right. I will say
Yeah.
though, what's nice is the
Superheroes.
reports that we get, specifically the growth reports. A lot of times we will share that with students, and that's when they kind of get that buy-in. They like to see how they did. They like to see if they improved. I've had students that I've worked with in an intervention model, who I'm like, let's look at this, and they're like, oh, I don't think I did good. Can I do it again? Like they buy in that way. So even though the assessment itself they might not love, like they love that they get that feedback where they can see how they did, and and it has to be with it's a teacher-led feedback, but it's
Mhm.
really powerful for the students. It goes back to that ownership piece too.
Is it, does it take them a while to do it? How much time do they have to do them?
So
It depends on the grade
depends on the grade,
level.
yeah.
So for K, it's like 3 20-minute sessions. And then for 1, it's 2 like 25 to 30-minute sessions. So we break it up. And we always schedule that in with them. So they get it done typically within the allotted time. There are some
That's a lot of time though. I mean, because you're doing that 3 times a year, so.
It is longer in the upper grades. I think we found, because we've kind of been playing around with it a little bit this year on what's the best format. And so it seems to be about an hour and a half to 2 hours per subject as you get into the upper grades.
What I will say about Eureka Squared is that they are much more realistic as far as how many lessons a teacher can get done in a year, like with snow days and with field day and field trips. So that is pared down quite a bit. And so we are fitting in all of our modules along with these benchmarking without having to worry too much about, okay, so we're going to miss this lesson. Maybe we need to combine these lessons. So that is much more realistic in Eureka Squared. So I haven't found it being like something that we're stressed about taking 2 math lessons to do this assessment.
I will
So-
also say part of the reason that it takes longer in the upper grades is it's an adaptive test. So as students are answering some questions correctly, and then they might get a higher level and they answer it incorrectly, the test will kind of go up and down based on their needs. And sometimes that can take longer if a student is inconsistent. The nice thing is though, once we get that, and we're still, as Jamie said, digging into all the reports that we have, but it breaks it down where we can look at the different 4 math domains and see, like, is there a particular domain that a student is struggling with? And then you can dive in even deeper, and it does give like specific common core scores, which can be helpful. So you can see a little bit more, did a student on this particular standard, did they answer them all correctly? Is it maybe they answered a few correctly and not all of them? So they might have jumped around quite a bit trying to figure out where they are. So it does take some time, but as we're digging into it, we're getting a lot of data about it that really is helping to drive our instruction and figure out in a classroom, where should our instructional groupings be and how are we scaffolding to meet those needs?
So this is an example of a data collection sheet, and you can actually click on that with E. And so this is what the kindergarten through 3rd grade look like, and 4th, 5th are similar as well. We break it down. The universal screeners for number sense are all of these, and it looks crazy, but you can click on it to see what that question was. So like when you're looking at this data, you can know what kids were asked to understand what that was. So we'll start with our iReady from the previous year. We'll look at it for fall, winter, spring, their universal screeners overall, and then for the previous year, their universal screeners moving forward. And then 3rd grade is gonna have that SAS as well included. But the thing that we added this year was looking by competency from iReady. So you can look at fall, winter, and spring and see where their growth is within a competency. And that has been really helpful. We use that quite a bit. And then we have our module data. So this is what a module assessment might look like. And again, everything's linked. So the assessment's linked, the scoring guide. I actually have been continuing to work on this. So like the proficiency indicators is also going to be linked on other ones, and sample student assessments is linked on there. So the teachers put that data in, and I found it so helpful, like just in my position, as far as like the other day we're starting geometry in first grade. So I went back to kindergarten to see, okay, who are my kids in kindergarten who were not quite understanding geometry by the end? These are the kids I need to work with, right? When I go into that classroom, those are the kids that I'm going to bring those extra tools and help them as we are starting that new module.
And this is based on a younger class, but the middle school grades have a very similar
Mhm.
report. It's just kind of based, they don't necessarily do the universal screeners. And so some of the assessments and formatting is a little bit different, but it's very, very similar.
And everything's connected by competency too. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from the teachers as far as how helpful that is when they are going back to like progress reports, right? You can see that this is competency 4 and overall this is how we're doing in competency 4. So you can look long and see how they're doing and how they're growing. So that's been the big thing that we've been trying to do is connect everything to our competencies to make it easier to understand where students need that support.
I have to say, this is amazing. This is great.
Thank you. I love my data sheets, so I'll take that.
I will say, as someone coming in new this year and getting this, what she did not talk about is on the competency sheet, there's a link to years past. So working with older kids, you can kind of dive back and like see how they've been doing, which is really nice too.
Yeah. And then this is, I wish this was more out there. I try to get it out there more, but our math website, we used to do a math corner, I think weekly in the bridge, and then we've gone to monthly. But this is something that we've really worked on as well, as far as just letting families, community know what we're doing in math and what that looks like at our school. It's so cool. And there are videos and this one doesn't have volume. I made sure some of them didn't because you're just going to hear a lot of talking in the background. But I don't know. I'm struggling to get this more out there. You know what I mean? But we have the math corner now goes in here, and we will put it in the bridge once a month. And then these honestly were from Math Night, and so we just started to load things. But there's a ton of math games that can be done at home with all the resources here too. So the math read alouds, that was another thing that I love books. I'm a math specialist. So I just did a lot of like trying to find books that connected to our curriculum, trying to feature some books. This was from so long ago, but I don't have the heart to get rid of it. So it's just so cute. So this just stays. It's pretty long, but so you can go look at it at some point if you
Yeah, I
would
will
like.
say those are 6th graders now.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
they are.
I just can't. So there's also family resources by grade level. There's summer learning. Again, the summer learning, I created these calendars that can be used year after year. So it's not something I have to update every year. I will if I find some of the activities are kind of out, but I have calendars that we usually print off and give to families right before summer vacation. So if they want to do something during the year or during the summer, they can. Yeah. So there's a lot on there. Don't go to Title I. I haven't updated that.
It is.
I'm working on that one. And the reason Title I is connected on there is because over the past number of years, the Title I funding has gone to math as a way to get another person to help us out. I used to have a Title I interventionist, Title I tutor. She had to leave this year. Unfortunately, had to leave. So that Title I is connected on there. I don't really know what else, but so.
So what's next? I know we've kind of talked a little bit about the couple presentation, but we wanted to summarize a little bit for you here at the end. We are continuing professional development with Eureka Squared. This year we looked more towards planning a lesson. We want to move that into now planning a whole modular, and how do we look at it, and how do we look at how it's going to build into the next grade level, or what were they doing last year and how could we bridge that connection this year. Differentiation is something that is a continuing process that we're working with, especially as we are getting used to iReady and all the data that it gives us. We want to make sure that what we're doing in the classroom is matching that data. And so we are going to continue doing professional development with that and how we're using it. Scope and sequence, we are about halfway through making sure that our new scope and sequences are fully aligned with the competencies that were developed last year. So we're going to finalize those in the probably next year, and then make sure that what we have is really aligned to our assessments. Taking those assessments, looking at our new scope and sequence, making sure that they're connected to our competencies and that everything across the board flows and makes sense. Ensuring access to all students is really our goal. And so we've talked about the different instructional practices that we've used and where they're coming from. And so we just want to make sure that all the teachers are feeling confident in those instructional practices, and that as we're noticing a particular group of students or a student is struggling, that we know how to help them, that we're supporting our teachers to make sure that they have what they need to help those students. We are working towards the idea we start concrete and then into pictorial and then into our abstract thinking, because for most students, if they miss any step of this, then the abstract becomes really difficult, which is part of what you see when you work with older kids, right? By the time that they start getting those really higher concepts, if they were struggling with this piece in the middle, or even sometimes the concrete at the beginning, those higher order concepts become much more challenging. So making sure that we're doing that as much as we can. And we talked about using manipulatives. So trying to increase our use of manipulatives in 4th and 5th grade, which the teachers are completely on board. They're seeing it too. And that's not something that's new to the curriculum we have. That's more of a grade level challenge. As kids get older, you just see less of it. And so that's something that we've already started looking at. How do we build it in? Where can we use it? What kind of manipulatives make sense to help those kids build the concrete? And then how do we take that concrete and bridge it over to the pictorial? So quite a lot going on, but we're making a lot of progress. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, you mentioned about the development of rubrics in terms of the competencies, and I'd really encourage that effort, because as a parent, trying to understand these report cards
I've heard the
is
same.
very difficult.
It is hard.
Yeah, and even in the parent-teacher conferences, it's kind of getting those answers about why is it a 2 instead of a 3, and it's like, and at least my oldest son being at Co Brown, it's the same thing with those competencies, but at least there's a percentage, an actual number value plus the competency number. So it kind of helps bridge that understanding a little bit better.
So as far as like an actual number value, I think that would be more like a conversation between adults and what they're wanting. But what we really want is to have, is just like you were saying, what does a 2 mean? Where's the skill that they're missing? And especially, it's tough because we don't want a competency for each individual standard, because that would be a mile long. So then we grouped our competencies, but then there's so many skills within that group that it does become where's the piece we're missing. So that's what we're trying to hope to address, is have it very black and white, where the students could even understand it, where, okay, I got a 2, this is exactly what I'm struggling with, and so now I know exactly what I need to practice with. Might take a couple of years. We'll get there.
So the going to Eureka Plus, is it because Eureka just updated, or so you weren't looking to change programs? It was just because this is what Eureka did.
We had, overall, the feedback for Eureka was good. It was just the most up-to-date Eureka.
And the lessons for the kids in Eureka, are they shorter?
I would not say they are. No, there's more involved in it. Like, as far as I have to be completely honest in that, right?
Yeah.
So they are not shorter, but I think they do a lot better of insert, like, at least every few lessons, making sure that there's a lot more student exploration, conversation, a lot more like in 1st grade tomorrow, we're going to be doing centers exploration of nets of 3D shapes, right? So there's a lot more of that kind of things than there was for Eureka. Also, I know you know that there was, you know, they had a word problem every single time. Well, this does such a better job of just incorporating those word problems into the lesson and making it relevant to that day rather than here's our word problem. Okay, now here's our lesson, right? So that's a lot better incorporated in there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I love about them too is they have a launch, and the launch is like they do videos for the kids with absolutely no words, and so they're picture videos, so it's really getting them to think. That's where they have the which one doesn't belong sometimes, or the math chat. That's where they might have a picture for them to talk about in the math chat. So the launch is really where it's activating their brain and getting them to think about the learning that's to come.
I'll also say, even though the lessons are not shortened, I find that it's very clear the things that this has to be taught as is. And then Eureka does a really great job of within the practice or within the lesson, these is how it builds. So you know with your group of kids, this is really where I need to target my attention. Instead of trying to do all parts of it,
Yes.
it's more made to be, we can focus on this one area that the students need.
Yeah.
So like in, say, in elementary, so I don't know, let's say third grade or
Mhm.
second grade. How much time during the day is typically spent on math?
We
on
allot
an
about
average?
an hour. 45 minutes to an hour. So yeah, in third grade, it's an hour. So it varies based off the grade level. And I think the lessons are intended for a 60-minute. In kindergarten, I believe it is 45 or 50. I can't remember. Or the intended lesson.
That includes their actual work time,
includes everything.
not just, because I know it before, some of the lessons were like
Yeah.
way too, they couldn't sit through them.
Well,
They
and you know, and with learning a new program, they're gonna take a little bit longer right now.
Yeah.
And as we get to know that better and read it and know how to read it a little better, we can see, okay, and we're taking lots of notes in our books, right? Okay, this we didn't need to do, this, like, because it does give you that option. Like, you could extend the learning with this, but if they're already understanding that, move on, kind of thing, so.
Each lesson too, as far as like the directed teacher role of it is really minimal to about 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay, that's
And then
the part
rest of
that
the
I-
time,
that's the
students
piece, yeah.
practicing, or they might be doing some
Yeah.
fluency practice. They're up out of their seats, as you saw, and so the lesson themselves are longer, but there's a lot of movement.
No, that part is fine. It's just the instruction. I know
Right.
before.
And that definitely varies
Was-
per lesson, per grade level, per,
Yes.
you know. I think we're doing great things. I'm very excited. I don't know, I'm very excited about what the program has to offer and
Any other questions before we go?
No, thanks very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry for coughing.
Thanks.
What time's it? They're done.
Sorry, standing in front.
Yeah.
No, you're good, thank you.
Nice try.
No, I realized after I sat here for the entire science presentation. I was like, I probably should have moved, you know?
Thank you.
I
Um,
know, but I'm thinking.
Before we move on to the minutes, I'm gonna make a slight adjustment to the agenda. Chris is here to discuss facility stuff, so Chris can leave early and not sit through all of it. I'm gonna put Chris in facilities and the discussion about the modulars. I'm gonna put that as number 4. And then just shift everything down so that we can get all of that out and Chris can enjoy his evening. Well, it's still light maybe. If you want to join us, Chris, that would be great. You're up now. Sorry, surprise.
Good evening. I was requested to find out some information about the current status of the mods. Did you guys get my notes?
I gave it to Cameron and Missy and they need to pass these down. Let me pass these to Kristen. So these were after Cannon and Missy came, Cannon had a few questions to follow up, so there's a bunch of different answers here. You'll see the questions, and Chris very quickly got all of this information together, and I appreciate that. So.
You guys probably don't know, Cannon and Missy came
Oh, that's
for
a
a
good
tour
point.
of the, forgot about that part. They came for a tour of the school because they're our new facilities committee. They met with Chris, they took a tour of the school and learned, I wasn't here.
We
Learned
loved it.
things.
It was the monthly all-school meeting, so we quickly ran out because we knew we only had limited time, so that Cannon had never been in the modulars. So the students were all in the gym, so we went there first to make sure that.
All these years and you hadn't been in there?
And so then afterward, Cannon had some questions that these are mostly a response to.
Perfect.
So
All
is that me to read through the answers? Or if you have any questions?
No, so I guess just under I had asked about the maintenance, because basically part of our rental, some of the maintenance
The
is
major
included.
maintenances,
Yeah.
Correct.
So we had just had a discussion about what that value was. So Chris provided us with some costs on those. Yeah, if you don't mind reading them, or I will.
Yeah, sure, no problem. One of the requests was to get an overall condition on the 4 heating units, one for each side of the mod. I had Granite State Plumbing and Heating come out this week.
I think I saw them this morning during drop off.
Yeah.
I was like, what's happening with the air conditioning and the modulars?
Yep. So they went through everything. In general, they're in good condition. The only thing he could not dig into without breaking the whole unit down is the heat exchangers. So we're assuming that there's no issues with those. Biggest concern, 1, the age, 2, the air conditioning. Each unit has its own air conditioning. The current gas that's in there is called R22. R22 is no longer in use for environmental concerns. It's fine the way it is. There's no environmental concerns or no health concerns. But if the minute a compressor goes down on that unit, that gas has to be withdrawn. Now, to revamp everything for the new gas, Granite State has they're standing that you should actually just, at that point, replace the unit. They're going through all of that to reclaim the gas and put new gas in. The other small thing that he saw was the contacts for the blower motors. 3 of them, they're old, they're not in jeopardy. They could fail, but as of right now, that would be on Skiabi. 1 is in good condition because last year they replaced the blower motor. And just to be a little more proactive, I'm having Granite State give me a quote to replace all 4 units just for knowledge in the future. I should hopefully be getting that in the next couple of days. Yearly maintenance costs, 5 years. Every 5 years, the carpets are replaced at the cost of Skiabi. We're due for a carpet replacement. Estimated the cost around $7,000 to have that done on the 4 sides. General maintenance yearly cost. Things that they've come in and repaired are soffit repair, siding repair. They did come through as a regular contract obligation. They replaced the doors 2 years ago. The roof was replaced in 2009. I'm sorry, in 2012. They actually took off the old shingles and replaced that. So we have 1 layer of new shingles dating back to 2012. And what else? The back steps. Because Skiabi doesn't own the steps to the mods. The replacement, the decks on the back of all the mods could stand for replacing over the next couple of years, just for age.
So are you saying that like those first 3 costs, the carpets, the yearly maintenance, the jacking, shoring, that's all their responsibility?
That is all their responsibility right now.
Do you, I mean, how many times have they had to do that jacking, shoring?
They haven't, since I've been here, I
Yeah.
don't think they have, they're pretty
Right.
sturdy, they're pretty low to the ground.
Yeah.
I just threw that cost in as a what if,
Yep.
or it could happen.
Yep.
So,
How long have you been here?
what's that?
How long have you been here?
5 years.
And then there is a price also, Amber heard back, because we wanted the updated number, it's been a few years since we got the buyout number is, 47,475 each. If the board was to just decide to purchase them.
Right, so the last one was 3 years ago and they were at 54
Yeah,
and
something like
change,
that
yeah.
sounds about right.
So, so I, you know, that when I asked for all this, it was just trying to figure out, you know, the 32, I think, or 33 that we're paying per year, per unit. So if we say that that's, you know, around 66,000 a year, you know, these costs, I think, are significantly lower once we own them, if we were to decide to buy them. These maintenance costs, I think we could, you know, take care of that ourselves. And Chris has said that, you know, he thinks they're in good condition. I think the biggest costs would potentially be those heating and air units, right? So,
And if we lease them, would Skiavi cover those costs, or is the air conditioning our cost?
Nope, they do all the service,
Okay.
maintenance on that.
so that'll be huge once we get that number,
Yep.
that replacement number. Just, you know, being that they are so old, but
Yeah, this discussion has come up a few times, and I think money-wise, it's sort of, I mean, besides the heat, the air conditioning cost potentially, I think the board has always felt like it makes sense to purchase them instead of paying for an annual lease. You know, I think this came up most recently when we were talking about a potential expansion. And even if we only owned them for 3 additional years or something, we would still be saving money.
right.
So I don't think it's a bad thing to explore. I do think we would need to put on a warrant article. But I'm not opposed to it.
I think just like you said, money wise, I think it just makes sense and
Yeah.
that we're gonna save money.
And I mean,
And I think, you know, we just need to get that as a warrant article, and if the people decide that that's what they wanna do, cause I don't think that we're gonna see an expansion anytime soon, so.
yeah, and I mean, even if theoretically there was a huge drop in enrollment or some big shift, I don't think it would happen in the next 3 years.
And quite frankly, the school could use the extra space.
Correct. So even if we didn't use it
Right?
for classroom space, I suspect we would use it for something.
And I would think you would need to, if you get permission from the voters to purchase the modulars, you're already gonna have the lease payment in your budget too. So you'd already
Right.
have
Part of it, yeah.
whatever that amount is for each unit budgeted for anyway.
Oh, at
so
that
wouldn't-
point, yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
yes.
Would you be
Able to just,
Yeah, if
switch
the,
it
if that warrant article fails and you can't buy them, then you have your lease
Your
payment already
lease.
because you have to pay the lease.
but if it passed, could you take that lease money
Yeah.
to do it?
Yes, and you could.
Yeah, no, that's, I'm just
Yeah,
making sure, cause
Right.
You could have, Attorney Eggert help with the drafting of that language, because there's, you know, contingency plans, like if article were to
Yeah.
fail, then this.
Right.
type
cause
of thing.
I know there was discussion about, could you use surplus money to do it? And you said we can't because you can't.
You won't, and
Yeah.
when they,
And-
if the voters vote to buy them, you won't know if you have surplus
Well,
yet.
exactly, that's why I was
You have
thinking,
to
so
budget
if the
for it.
money is in the budget,
Yeah.
but,
But a good chunk of it would be there for the
Yeah.
lease.
right,
It's 30,000 for both or 30,000 for each?
Like 33 each.
That's the
30,000
rental
for
price, yeah.
30,000 each.
It's
Like
about
33.
33, I think, yeah.
33 each.
Sounds right, I knew it was 30 something, yeah.
But yeah, so for an
So that's
extra
60,000.
14 grand, you know, that,
40,000 or so to buy.
And the price to buy out goes down each year a little
right.
bit,
Mhm.
so you have to still pay the lease this year.
Mhm.
So next year's price would be lower, little lower.
Can we get them to fix all the air conditioned units?
Yeah.
in that
You know, tell them we're thinking of.
We did just request
Yeah,
the.
no. I know, I'm just kidding. No, but yeah.
And they did send pricing for new modulars, which we didn't
Gosh.
ask for, but that's really not an option for us because we're not grandfathered.
So we'd have to. plug
Yeah,
in.
You have to have bathrooms and
yeah.
stuff, right?
I think they were. It was like. Yeah, 296,000 each.
A piece?
Yep, to buy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
In addition.
And if they, the new ones, they would be supplied with like, we would have to have put plumbing in and septic, but they would have the actual bathrooms and whatever in it.
Yeah, they all, I think, come
That
with that
they-
now,
now,
that way,
yeah.
because it's required, yeah.
Okay.
So do we need to make a motion here to create a warrant article, or do we take a vote that that's what we want to do, or?
You don't typically develop the warrant articles until December-ish.
Okay.
So I don't know, you can certainly get a consensus of the board of, is everyone in agreement that when budget season rolls around, we want to do this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I also think try and fix as much as you can beforehand.
Yeah, well, Chris mentioned the carpets. So we gotta make sure we remind them to get those carpets done this year.
They're gonna say, why is he calling me so much this year?
I think it's a good idea to revisit it.
Awesome. What other facilities things did you want to discuss?
Landscaping is out for is out for bid. I'll have the numbers in next week. And that's gonna be a 3-year contract. And then Citywide is our current cleaning company in the evening. They've been with us for 2 years now. They're doing a very good job. They will freeze their prices for the next 2 years if we roll their contract over. I'd like the board to give me permission to move forward with that price freeze instead of going out to bid. Benefit of having Citywide isn't the actual cleaning contractor. They find other companies to come in and take care of the cleaning. Having Citywide here, it takes it off my shoulders to have to go out for an RFP every time the cleaning company isn't meeting my standards. I've chewed through a lot of cleaning companies here because they weren't meeting my standards. Everybody knows what I want done now, and we're right in line with what needs to be done. So to put this out to bid just for a lower price, we're gonna get a lower quality work. And Citywide is so, I call them and they're at the front door looking to see what they need to do. So I would really appreciate, I'm not saying it right, I think we should move forward with extending the contract for 2 years with Citywide with a price.
And they're
freeze.
freezing their,
What?
and they're freezing their price.
And they're freezing their price for 2 years, correct?
Did they have a price increase? I can't remember. I feel like we talked about this during budget season and now I can't remember.
They have not increased their price, I think it's for 1 or 2 years.
Okay. Got it. And so the current contract, I know it's a little wonky because we've been on a default budget for a while. We're paying for it out of salary lines.
It comes out of the contract
Contract
services line,
services.
but the money is sitting in salary lines.
Okay.
Because we budget every year hoping to find custodians and haven't in several years
And
now.
this doesn't say I'm not gonna continue to keep finding a nighttime custodian. I've already worked out, another plan if I was to get lucky enough to find an evening custodian full-time, year-round, that I already have the pricing set up for that, where we have specific areas laid out and the pricing that would drop from that contract price to bring in a daytime or an evening custodian.
And they would be on board with.
They are.
They know.
Yeah, they asked for a large chunk, so they would still maintain the top floors, all the stairwells and all the floors. If I was to bring someone in, they would be doing either the right side or left side of the first floor.
So,
It- So go ahead.
the ones that we have right now, they are mainly here in the evening at night?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I have also one part-time gentleman that's been here. He's part-time seasonal. He just works during the school year. He's been here for 5 years also. He would just maintain his regular duties throughout the school year.
And is he nighttime also?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
He's a nighttime. I mean, I have one, I just fortunate enough to have one daytime custodian that just came on 2 months ago.
And how long have we been using Citywide?
3 years now.
And Chris has advertised that whole time. So and when Chris lost his day custodian, Chris was handling all the duties himself during the day and his job. So it's been very difficult to fill the positions.
I mean, I think if we're satisfied with the services, as long as we don't have a policy or something. that
You
it
can,
has to go to bid.
it's already a contract, so you can
Okay.
extend it.
When we brought on Citywide, was it put out to bid then? Were other
Yeah.
countries, other
Yes.
countries, other companies
Yeah.
looked into? My
Yeah.
mouth isn't
That
working. so-
German company.
I
is
know.
really
that German-
expensive.
Cause they had to fly over every night. So, no, I just wonder if it had been put out to bid then, so they were the.
And for informational purposes, anybody that we contract with also has to be background checked. So any of the
Mhm.
workers they send, they're not allowed to send them into the school until I get the results of the background check. So just so people are aware.
Do we need a motion? Okay, I'll make a motion to extend the citywide contract for an additional 2 years.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And that's all I have, unless you guys have something else.
I have a question. Shoot. I know we've talked about parking lot lights.
Yep.
You know, that's what I was gonna say.
I'll start
You
working
can
on-
blame Zach Langlois, because every time I see him, he says, are we getting parking lot lights? I'm
That's
like,
the end of this parking lot project.
yeah.
Yes, we'll have a ribbon cutting for 'em.
Yeah.
Yes, I will work on pricing, but, just so I can give you guys a little bit of my plan for that. To put the entire project out to bid, most likely it would be either a general contractor or an electrical contractor. So he would go out, he would find the bollards, the light poles, buy all the supplies, and an excavator. So I think and I feel strongly that if I take those 5 different sections of the project and chop them up, we can have a lot of savings because someone's always gonna jack up the price of each individual contractor just to cover their costs. I think we can save a lot of money and I can do a very good job with getting each individual person to do a separate bid for each individual item, put those numbers together and present that as one number to the board. If you guys are in agreement, I can give you the numbers. If you're not in agreement with it, we can take it as a full scope of works RFP out for bid.
So you would essentially be acting as the general contractor.
General contractor, yeah.
Got it. Is that something that,
Which always saves money.
Chris has, and
Right.
Chris has done that before.
Let's say,
He's
so are you
he's been
comfortable with that?
managing our projects.
I would be proposing it if I
Yeah,
wasn't. Oh, and some of the other savings we're gonna see is if everybody is just basically supplying labor. We will be buying the lamp posts, we will be buying the bollards, and whoever supplies the lamp post is gonna give us preferred pricing on all the wires, the nuts, the screws, everything else we need. So I think we can see some good savings cutting it up, chopping it up like that as proposed, instead of proposing it as one big project.
Yeah, if you're willing to do that, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because like you said, I mean, we're not paying markup on all that stuff that you could order directly.
I'm fine with that as a plan.
Okay, then I'll,
Do we have is there a time frame that you want to do the project in?
I can start getting everything together and we can probably, since we'll be in a different budget year, we probably can't start
Yeah.
until July 1. So as soon as July 1 rolls around, I'll have everybody lined up. Materials ready to go, everything scheduled and delivered. We'll just,
I mean, we could also look at where we're at the end of the year. And if your funds are looking good, you might decide to tell Chris to go buy the lights.
right, I can always buy all the materials. It's
Mhm.
just the labor that we will have to wait for.
Okay.
Are there any other summer projects that
That's why
are
about
on the docket?
the roof.
I
I was gonna say solar had been on the docket, but
Yes. Got to talk to you, Patty, about it, because you sent me the authorization for NEC.
Yeah.
We just got sent in the permission to do the engineering survey for New Hampshire Electrical Co-op. They're gonna come in and do an in-depth
Analysis.
analyze. Us putting solar on, feeding it through their lines, and however that's gonna work. So all that information has been submitted by Barrington Power. Patty has given permission to any New Hampshire Electrical Co-op to move forward with that. So we're just waiting for them to schedule that survey. They'll come in, look at everything. They've already been in once, but we didn't have the right paperwork. So now we have the right paperwork. And we should move relatively quickly on that. If we can get that all approved by June, we should be good to start installing July 1. That is the goal.
wow, okay.
There has been a lot of paperwork.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, the biggest holdup has been the funding, because we had to change the wording of how, whether we were gonna buy it as a school or a business. We had to make sure that was legal on on all the parties involved. Got that, then it was the funding. They weren't sure that the current administration was gonna continue
For
with
sure.
the funding. But it seems like all that's ready to
Okay.
move forward, so, yep, hopefully
Cool.
by
I was-
August, we'll
I'm-
flip a new switch.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm a little bit surprised to hear that in a very good way.
I think Barrington's been great. They've been very responsive and I don't
Yeah,
know what
they-
your work
They have been very
with
diligent.
email and
on
telling me to
getting-
sign things. We're doing a quick turnaround.
Yep. Yes,
The pipe up there.
I will take care of that okay. Missy noticed the pipe as you walk down those awkward stairs.
Mhm.
There's a drainage pipe that goes underneath the flat landing. One end is corroded. I'll put something over that so there's no sharp ends, but this summer I will just cut 6 or 7 inches beyond that pipe, excavate that out, put it in new pipe, and then just re-pour it in-house.
And during our tour, Brian mentioned something about a privacy fence, I think it was. Did you find anything out on that?
Yeah, so I kind of figured, knowing that the mods are kind of a big deal and kids out there and public, idea of safety and things of that nature. I discussed with Chris the possibility of buying purchasing a 6-foot chain link fence with privacy slats that would go, and next time you're out during the sunlight, daylight time, there's a gap between the building and the mod. You say about 8-10 feet, Chris, about something like that. And then, so putting a fence there, and then at the end of the mod, short fence to the road essentially, and then a gate, and then the fence continuing from the other side of the drive towards the woods. When we looked up prices, we're guesstimating $4,500 to $5,500 for everything. Then we got to look at install and all that. But and the idea just it'd be similar to what I do now. Like after the traffic's gone, I would just walk over there and close it. Close the gate. But it would give that impression from the outside world that everything is kind of boarded off and can't really access this part of the property without like either climbing the fence or, just give that extra little bit of safety feel. And again, we've never had an issue, but it's just a talk out in the community and something if we can be proactive about it and use surplus funds for that project, it would be a good idea.
Chris, could you make sure you talk to both police and fire about any gate that we're gonna put across and ask how much space they need to drive anything through and whether they have any issue? We're not gonna lock it, but just wanna make sure that they're okay with it.
I could do that, and I'll start looking at contractors for pricing, for solid pricing.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else for us?
That's all I have tonight.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Great.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for moving me up.
Of course.
Oops, sorry.
All right, we are on to the minutes for March 19th. Anyone wants to make a motion?
We have to make a motion to approve them first?
Yeah.
And then talk about it?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I move that we approve the minutes of
March
19th. Very prepared here, sorry.
Second.
Move them along.
Okay, Ellen and Missy. Discussion.
I just wanted to, I have a few comments on it. The science presentation, I thought it'd be nice to add something in there about how they've linked the summative assessments to the units that they're doing, and they're going back and reviewing instruction if need be. Thought that was a really good thing that they're doing to try to improve. This would be the middle school. Also, they said that in grades K through 5, that's going to be considered next. And I think you had something in there. I'm sorry, I should put the minutes in front of me. There's something in there where you said science presentation. They explained, it said grade 6 and 7 teachers come in and review. I believe that's something that they're going to do, but they haven't done yet. Is that correct, Kristen?
That's correct.
So that should be changed to that they will come in and review what was taught. So it's something they're not doing yet.
Okay.
Do you want, Tricia, do you want Ellen to email you so that you have
Yeah.
some suggested language for
I can
that
do that,
first
yeah.
part? Thank you.
Yep.
And just, she had pointed out, I don't know, I have, we have spell checking.
Yeah. It was a little crazy this time, but
What, because I can ask Google how to spell Zet, and it's not on here correctly. I will go back through these and make all the typos.
Thank you.
It's Dooryard Gazette, I think, not
Yeah.
Backyard, yeah. It's
Yeah.
door,
That was
Dooryard.
Yeah, yeah.
that could be, and because it was spelled Backyard, so. Not sure about that.
Yeah, and there's,
It's Dooryard, is it?
yeah, Dooryard Gazette, and there's quite a few typos in here.
Yeah, I showed her a whole bunch,
I
so.
got that.
I think the other comment I had was, let me see if I can find it, I put it in B. You have the very last line, it says, at the end of the discussion, the entire board agreed it's not a good idea to move art and music to the modulars. And I didn't agree to that, and there wasn't any vote, and I'm not sure I do agree with that. So I would appreciate if you just said that most of the board agreed it wouldn't be a good idea, or everybody but Ellen, I don't know. Well, you didn't have a vote on it, and I'm not sure I totally agree with that. So.
Do we want to approve them with Ellen's edits, or do we want to?
I think if there's
See them
enough
again.
editing
Okay.
that you probably want to see them again.
Okay. So we will table the minutes for March
You
19th.
could withdraw your motion, that might be cleaner.
Okay, yeah, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay,
And Missy, do you withdraw your second?
I withdraw my second.
we'll bring amended minutes to the next meeting. Okay. Public comments. Marie, get up here.
Thanks for coming.
Agenda review, I don't have any other changes, except we're taking out the modulars because we've discussed the modulars. Okay, Review of correspondence. We had at least 2 emails. There was an email from Leah Cooper about the bus. After our discussion about the Co-Brown and Concord High School buses. And then there was an email from Christine about band. And not making band an after-school activity. Is there anything that people want to discuss about those?
I'm not sure I understood the bus one.
Yeah, I also couldn't tell if she was suggesting that sometimes the bus would go to Concord, sometimes it would go to
That's,
Co-Brown.
I know, I didn't
But
understand
I
if
think
that's
it
what
was
she
like,
meant.
well, I would rather have a bus only 2 days a week. So like 2 days a week, the Co-Brown students get the bus, 3 days a week, the Concord students.
Yeah, I didn't really get
Yeah,
it.
I think that was what she was, that was my understanding when I read it.
I am curious though, and I don't know if it's related to busing, but, we got, there was an update or something about the busing right now with CHS, and all the CHS kids are able to be on one bus. They're
They have to
shortening,
meet
yeah, they have to
somewhere.
meet, but I
don't
didn't
really know
realize
the
that that,
details.
Wasn't that just a temporary?
I don't know. Are we
I
down a high
know.
school
Right.
district?
Yeah, I thought it was like,
Driving for us, and I think they had to reconfigure a few things. I don't know all the details.
Right, I don't either.
I don't want to speak out of turn, but.
right,
And
yeah, then that's, I just,
think any given time, there's a different number of students riding, and now, spring sports have started, and that's always been the issue,
yeah,
is parents sign up because they want to have their seat, but then on any given day, you
They
don't
don't
really know how
utilize it.
many kids actually get on.
yeah.
That's the hard part.
So I guess that was kind of, yeah, and that's kind of, we had kind of discussed that about the meeting points and stuff like that, and I just, you know, I just think that if that works, then, and you know, I think that one driver has to have preference to CHS right now, just based on, you know, our last conversation. But if that works, couldn't we do the same thing and have mass meeting spots and have one for CHS and one for Co-Brown? And, you know, it's just a thought. If we were to only have 2, I got a lot of feedback after the last discussion. And I noticed in the minutes, it does say in here that I said that I believe there should be 1 to each. As the conversation developed and we discussed everything else, we came around to the agreement that,
I think
But-
the whole issue from my understanding from Amy, the snag came when we sent out the sign up.
right,
Because all these people signed up for the bus,
Right.
and then you have
And
no
the buses
way
aren't big
of-
enough.
Right, and then, and you know the buses aren't full every day,
Right.
because kids have different sports, but you don't know the days they are gonna be full, and you don't know the parents that signed up if they're really gonna take the bus. So if everyone took the bus that signed up for it, there would
so,
be too many students.
yeah, and I think that at the end, we kind of agreed that there needs to be some kind of ridership policy that we
Right.
develop, and I'd like to explore
Still
that.
keep oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Obviously we made our decision for next year, but I feel like we should definitely explore
Yeah,
that.
and I mean, I think, you know, we obviously asked, Amy to keep us in the loop about ridership for next year.
She's on the call.
Oh,
She
yeah.
did offer to call in again if you want.
I don't think, I mean, I don't wanna have a whole robust discussion about something that's not on the agenda. But, I think we can keep exploring it.
absolutely.
Or if
And we have to, because we've got another year of a contract, and if we have the same thing we've had before, where 50% go to each place and the numbers are up, you know, more and more, so.
And it might change after next year, because you're gonna have more and more students graduating from Concord who didn't have choice.
Right.
So the numbers might even out a
Right, we
little
may
bit.
not have as many students, upper class
Upper
students
class,
who wanna
right.
ride.
Exactly. And that's where it's tough, because when they went to Concord, they were kind of guaranteed transportation.
Right.
Right.
People that went to Co-Brown were not guaranteed transportation, so, but there's a point where
it's, you know, it might work out.
But my understanding is that we're in agreement that as the numbers change, we're gonna move towards that solution.
Yeah, I mean, I
Would-
think the board had wanted to do a bus to each.
Okay, yeah,
And then the
that's,
numbers
The
came back
numbers just messed it
and
up.
that was just, it didn't seem like it was gonna be able to work. But I think our goal
Yeah, I don't think we
was-
expected so many juniors and seniors at Concord High to still want to take the bus, so we got, it kind of blew up.
well, yeah, and I, like, to your point, not to have a huge discussion about this, but I thought it was important that that was kind of clear, because that discussion went on for so long.
Yeah, yeah, right.
A lot of the emails that I got, you know, and stuff were not, you know, they didn't take all of
For
it.
sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard when this is obviously our only time to discuss this, right?
Right.
So like anything, any thought that you have comes out in discussion and then people say, this is what you said. And you're like, well, it was a discussion.
Yeah,
You know, like we were talking about it, it was an idea. That happens a lot.
But as long as people know that as the numbers change, we're gonna try to support that change as well, so, awesome.
And just as a, I want to keep it going, but, the headmaster called me too, to talk about the busing and what he had been, sharing with parents, and I reiterated that the board is still committed to finding a solution and told him he could direct people to listen to the whole discussion so that they understood what the outcome was.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a magical third bus, Missy. That's Missy's finding for.
My wife just got hired by Dale.
Oh,
so-
wow.
Did she really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But they're also, you know,
Yes.
she's in training right now, so, but that doesn't mean that that's what she's gonna be doing, but.
That's
Yeah, but the
amazing.
caveat was supposed to be.
I promise you that.
Great.
I do think it's nice that she sent a suggestion, and
Yes.
I think the thing is too, it worked in Deerfield to some kids' head at this day, but I think trying to have it work that way for kids going to Concord and kids going to Northwood, it would just, yeah, it worked here in town, but I think trying to go out of town, like, okay, these days you have it, these days you don't, would be like, but I appreciate that she
You know,
sent an idea.
Unfortunately, we have seen situations at Concord. There was a situation that I don't think required kids to actually get bused at Co-Brown this week, but the Concord buses had to go to Concord, get all the kids in
Yeah.
the middle of the day.
Yeah.
So if it's not a Concord day, are we not sending
Right, how do we?
buses
Yeah,
to
yeah.
Concord to retrieve the kids at
Yeah.
1 PM if they have to get emergency released? I think it would create a lot of issues. Yeah, I'm all for people making suggestions. Anything else? Oh, I did want to say, this is not part of the review of correspondence, but I do plan to add at some point to future agendas, I haven't figured out where, but the ability for the board to discuss suggestions from public comments during the business
Oh, good.
meeting of the board.
Great.
That was a suggestion from a training I went to today.
That would be
So-
nice.
I agree.
I've always felt terrible. 'cause
I
people
know.
say stuff and then we
It is
can't
very
talk about
awkward.
it.
It's
Yes.
awkward.
Yeah,
Hi,
So
yeah,
there's a solution to that,
okay.
awesome.
which is making
Putting it on your
board
agenda.
discussion as part of the business meeting, not having a Q&A necessarily, but, so I thought that was a good suggestion, so.
Mhm.
I've emailed Patty, we'll add that to the next agenda, so don't be confused
Okay.
when you see it on the next agenda. Okay, review of correspondence, consent agenda.
Yes, you have one email in your drive that is a confidential personnel document. You can, if you don't have any questions or wanna discuss it, you can take action now, but if you wanted to talk about what's in the letter, it would need to be done in
I will make a motion to accept the personnel action.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, or if anyone feels that we need non-public, we can certainly hold off on the motion until after.
Sorry.
It's the letter that's right after, the band
letter.
Yeah,
email.
okay. Is that Jamie that just made the presentation? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We've all
Oh, I'm
done
sorry. I
it.
misunderstood.
You're very soft spoken over there. We can't discuss anything about it in public. But if you want, we can move it to non-public if people want to have a discussion about it.
Not a
No.
lot of.
No.
There's nothing, there's not
No.
much, there's not that much action we can take,
Yeah.
except for accepting. So,
I can fill you in on the conversation more if you want. I mean, during non-public.
Well, if we're gonna just take action now, we just take action.
yeah. Okay, all in favor of accepting the personnel, request?
Aye.
Aye. With regrets. Okay, immediate business. So after our last meeting, when we learned that our treasurer was not going to be able to step into her position, Dwight Barnes indicated that he was interested in becoming the treasurer.
Perfect.
He has already talked to the outgoing treasurer, to learn sort of the scope of the role and feels comfortable and feels he would be able to competently act as our treasurer. He has acted as assistant moderator during deliberative sessions and things like that. So is very familiar with the school board. Can we appoint him?
You need to
Okay.
appoint him, yeah.
So I'll make a motion to appoint Dwight Barnes as the treasurer for a one-year term.
Second it.
Any discussion?
He'd be good.
Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah,
And thank you to Trish. She recruited.
Good job, Trish.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trish. Yeah, so the position is a one-year position. If he wants to do it again, he'll have to put his name on the ballot next year, but. Okay,
We just write him in.
yeah. All in favor of appointing Dwight to be the treasurer?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, special education collaboration.
Yes, so in your packet, I'm not sure, Jess Bickford may have mentioned this in passing, but she's been talking with the other Lakes region, both the superintendents and the special education staff, trying to find cost-cutting measures, of which all of us are doing, trying to see if there's any way that we can collaborate or work together. So this is a request for them. This is just to explore. It's not a commitment, but they felt like it was important for boards and superintendents to understand what the exploration is, and that theoretically you would support something like this. So I'm not sure that our SAU will benefit as much as others because we already do some of the hiring of staff and then sharing between our schools. So, some of the smaller schools in the Lakes region are looking for a 1 day a week for a school psychologist and they can't find anyone, but they're looking into the possibility of hiring that person and then 5 little schools can share, which we already do in our SAU. So we may or may not ever need to take advantage of the services of the consortium, but they do want to start exploring and coming up with some ideas and suggestions. There's no financial commitment, it's just support that they are going to start looking into this. And I think all of our other districts, I think Chichester's getting it tonight and you're getting it tonight, but I think everybody else has already seen it and signed it.
I'm not opposed to it in theory. I do think for our SAU, it doesn't make that much sense, because we do already do this. But, understand that.
I think it's good for us to be at the table for the conversation.
Especially if I don't know, if there are gonna be if there's enough schools and there's enough need that maybe there will be more providers that come to the area or
Bring the
offer
cost down.
services. If there's a strong showing, I think that's fine. Yeah, it's, the Lakes region to me seems so far away that I'm like, how could this possibly be helpful to us?
It is a strange region. Pittsfield's part of it, Concord's part of it, we're part of it, but then a lot of the like Belmont, Laconia. So, you know, we've tried to share PD in the past, and if Laconia holds the PD, our teachers aren't gonna go take advantage of PD in Laconia. So it is kind of it's a weird spread out region, but I think it's worth having conversations and coming up with brainstorming ideas.
And if other districts are doing things differently, or there's things that we can learn from
Yeah.
other districts, I'm always in favor of that. But yeah. Any other thoughts?
If it doesn't cost us anything and they're looking to help us reduce our costs, then
Right.
it just doesn't hurt, right?
I think it's worth looking into for sure.
Okay, do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. I hope Jess is prepared to answer every time I need, whenever I need a motion.
When in doubt, just make a motion. It doesn't hurt to vote. It hurts if you don't vote on something you were supposed to.
I will make a motion that we approve and sign the memorandum of agreement for the intensive special ed needs and contracted related services for the Lakes Region Consortium.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okey-dokey. The fiscal year 25 budget update / review.
So at the last meeting, Nancy had mentioned that in looking at this report, there's no explanation as to why some of the lines are really over, really under. So I asked Amber just to help us through some of these. We highlighted some, and Jess also gave me a little blurb about special ed, because those are the numbers that are always, always guaranteed, those are gonna be off. So I'll just breeze through a few, and if you see anything that I didn't touch on. The first one I wanted to make sure we talked about was the high school tuition. So that right now is, and remember, we still have 2 months left. So we're still updating POs and trying to keep as accurate records as we can, but things do change. So that is overdrawn 144,000 in March, and Amber said that we budgeted for 193 students and we have 200. So there's your 7 extra kids that you don't have a backup for. That has to come out of the budget.
Yeah.
Just as an aside.
And those are students, do we have any background? Like those were not just, we failed to account for them.
No,
Yeah,
yes,
they
no, they were
moved in.
students that we didn't know or have or
Moved in or
chose
homeschooled
to
that we didn't
come.
know about or
Exactly.
something like that.
You know, there were some parents that contacted me, which was great, but I would have no way of knowing who they all were, so. Let's see. There is extra in the 1,200-110 teacher salary line. The overage there is because we had a speech person on leave and we were unable to hire someone, so we contracted. So it leaves you extra money in your salary line, but all goes towards your contracted services line at a more expensive price.
Yeah.
So that would offset that small piece of it. Contracted services, so 1,200, 323, and then 1,200, 569. So one is placements and one is contracted services. And again, these are continuously evolving, and I can't give you specific details like, hey, that's because this kid this and this kid that, but I can tell you sometimes you'll project a placement for a student and it ends up that you're contracting services instead of placing and paying for tuition, for example. Some of it just said that was guessing the special ed costs for this year for our high school students. So next year should be easier now that the costs actually came in. We see what the programs actually cost, and they have we have great relationships with both schools, so we're able to better pinpoint, like this year when they were going through all the transition meetings and hopefully tweaking that.
So you're saying it's more Co-Brown because we should know Concord, or did Concord change things?
No, but we also had students move around. So we had a few students that didn't go to one place that thought they were gonna go there, went to a different school. We had kids move in. So it wasn't a huge portion of that, but that is a factor, that's off, that sometimes is off.
I mean, that's an awful lot of money. That's over half
Well,
the
your
money.
contracted services is over 601,000, but your placements is up 774. So you also would have contracted services at Concord that it's hard to get into without giving you specific details of why, but there are things that switch places also.
Patty, I just want to clarify, probably more for Canon, since you're new. There are 2 teacher salary lines.
Okay.
The one that Patty was pointing out was in the 1,200 line, which is our special education line. So,
Yeah.
and then the very first line is our 1,100 teacher salary line on the first page. And that is up 92,000 because we never filled one of our positions. So I just wanted to make sure there are 2 teacher salary lines, but one is special education and one is regular education.
And what was that, the kindergarten?
Was the third kindergarten class, fourth kindergarten class, yes.
And while you wouldn't have hired someone that salary was $92,000, you have staff movement all the time, so you have people come and go and they're on different steps on the scale, so it's part of, a good chunk of it is that salary.
This will make much more sense after you go through
Oh,
a
yeah.
full budget.
Kind
We're
of,
saying
sort
a
of.
lot of words right now that we are all very familiar with, but it's very confusing jumping into this point probably.
Agree.
Like contracted services, there is also facilities contracted
Contracted
services.
services, yeah.
This is specifically for special education. So when we have to contract people outside of the school for services.
Yeah, so that, those two, I mean, that kind of makes sense to me that we have a deficit on
Yeah.
one and then a surplus on the other. 'Cause
Yeah,
like
it
you were saying.
often, at least this is what they say at the SAU meetings, it often, like, if one goes up, then the other one generally goes down, and it's like
When your
constantly
fingers
back
are
and
crossed,
forth.
that happens.
Right.
Because we've had years when it has just both gone down.
Right.
And there's been just increased costs and no place else to balance it.
So like, this year, we're not in a bad situation for the budget wise, but like last year, we froze the budget for most of the year because I don't know if it was contracted services or placements,
I forgot.
one of the
It
two was
placements.
blown out of the water for our budget. So we are not, even though this looks very bad, it's
The
not,
savings in one line.
it's not as
Yeah.
dire.
You'll see that your custodian salaries, there's a surplus of $68,000 in that line, but that is offset from contracted services where we pay citywide. So your salaries are budgeted in the custodial salary line, but your actual expense is in contracted services. So you'll see Chris's section 2640-431, contracted services, has $132,000 deficit, but a good, I'm looking for notes at the same time that I'm talking. Amber gave me a spreadsheet that I need to put my hands on, so it's good, of the offset for that line, so trust fund expenses. So, citywide was 69,218, and you had 68,000 in salaries, so that's just happens to be, that's great, because you've probably got extra money someplace else for salaries, like in the FICA line and all of that, so you're coming in under budget overall. And then there's roughly $100,000 in trust fund expenses that will come in, so we have to pay from those in Fund 1, and then the money comes in that you just voted to withdraw from the trust fund that balances that part out. So that's why that looks like it's significantly overexpended. Let's see if I had any other notes.
A couple things that I wondered if they were typos.
Sure.
So under library educational tech subscriptions,
Page you on?
I am on page 5, kind of in the middle.
No,
Yeah, it's $88,400. I think it's supposed to be
Percent.
just,
It's percent, that's why.
Oh,
It's
percent,
percentage,
okay.
Yep.
So 8, but, all right,
Cause the budget was
Okay.
$1.
all right, oh, okay, I got it.
800%.
Yeah, all right,
Spent
okay,
more than
so,
you had.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a typo, but
Not a typo, so that's
we
probably,
tried, this is one of the lines that we tried to rectify during budget
Okay.
season, where we were moving things.
We
into
didn't, that's
that,
not where we wanted it. Right.
oh,
Because we use more
Okay.
subscriptions
okay,
than
but
printed
because we're
magazines
still
or
on,
whatever.
okay, all right, I got it. And so the other thing is probably I read it wrong too.
Oh.
Is if, no, I
Not like
probably,
it's-
no, I probably read it as the
easy.
percentage, under
Yeah.
the separation benefit, but I'm not sure, remember where that is.
Yeah, that was over too. That is because if you, there's a benefit in the collective bargaining agreement
Yeah.
for retirees, and I think they get part of their sick days paid out, so I
Yeah.
think someone left and that's a separation benefit.
Okay,
We wouldn't have been able to budget for that person.
okay, so it's just,
In that
it's
sense.
percentage
It's
too.
just-
I read
yeah.
it wrong.
It's
Okay,
a little bit over, but
Yeah.
not,
no, but
not a
I,
ton- it's not a ton of money, but it's a high percent.
right, and that's how I read it. I didn't see the percent sign. I just read it as the, holy smoke. So, yeah, all right, my mistake. Thank you.
So do we have the number of surplus right now as of now? or-
So there's always a big asterisk on this number, but right now it looks like you're close to $500,000. So they're still reconciling, like health insurance, trying to get as updated as they can on that from the remaining bills. They're still updating POs. There were a few areas that hadn't been updated yet, but I would say that's a good approximation. I can't imagine anything else coming in that we don't know about that would be that significant. So.
Okay.
And now is the time when I'll keep updating this
Mm.
regularly to try to keep you up to speed, because you're gonna get to the point in the next month where you're gonna need to make decisions to make sure that whatever you do, we purchase and get in before June 30th. So anything that you're thinking about, like Brian's fence, if we haven't, Brian's fence, Brian's fencing us in.
All get the library. together.
That's right. Brian
We can get a plaque.
It has to be removable so that when the fence falls over, put the plaque on the new fence.
I'll have Julianne make you a plaque.
So maybe we should talk about that at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Things that we,
Things that we might wanna
Yeah.
consider, yeah, it's not too early, for sure, cause
because if we have to
June
decide by
comes
June
fast, yeah.
30th, then
you
that
you
only
have
gives
to
us
decide
one meeting.
before that.
Yeah,
Because
right.
you have to encumber the money before the fiscal year ends. Yeah, and I think Brian and Kristen had a couple ideas too of things we might wanna think about, so does that put it on the next one?
Yeah.
Sooner is better than later.
Yeah.
So of that 500, 250 of that was in that warrant article, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to find your warrant articles.
Right,
Yep,
yeah.
out of that.
There was 250 and then there was 10,000
Yeah, there was another,
maybe.
yeah, there was something else.
For their
The
refrigerator.
equipment.
That's right,
equipment
I think it
repairs.
was 10, that makes sense.
40 did not pass, so I think it will just be 260.
40 was the high school thing,
Yes.
which wouldn't have helped us completely this year, but would have.
But you can see in a year, if you weren't operating in a surplus, that's an overage of $143,000. That would have potentially frozen our budget and we would have had to figure out where to get that from.
So when people say it's never been a problem,
It's never, oh,
it is a problem. But that's okay, we can make up for it this year.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else about the budget update? Nope. Alright, so we will skip D, we already covered D. General assurances for fiscal year 26.
I did not copy that because it's like 20.
Yeah, you don't,
20
it's
so.
not necessary.
Doesn't have to say every page.
Yes.
No.
So, in past years, the general assurances are for, any district, which I think would be probably everyone in the state receiving federal funds, so all the grants. You have to sign general assurances that you are following all the laws. And that used to be just me initialing and signing, and a few years ago, they added that the board this needs to be on an agenda, and I have to put the date that you saw these, and Kendra now also has to initial every page and sign the last page. And I think it was just to be more intentional, to make sure that you understand that we have federal laws that we're following, a lot of them. Yeah, I know. And that, you know, if we're getting those funds, we have to make sure we're following the law. And I can promise you, we follow the law. If we didn't, it would be a huge mistake, and I can't imagine anywhere that said mistake would be made, because we've got it all your policies. When the school board association comes out,
Mhm.
you do your policies, that's the stuff that we make sure we're following all the laws. So, okay, those are yearly, and it's before we apply and get awarded our grant funding. Speaking of grant funding, just so that you're aware, we did get an email from the Department of Education that they usually get their allocations by now, so that they can start telling us what they're gonna, so it's like a flow through. The federal government gives it to the State Department, then the State Department of Ed tells us this is how much you're getting for each of your grants. Those allocations haven't been awarded yet from the federal government to our state DOE. So they can't give us our allocations, which is a little nerve wracking, and they're gonna be delayed, but they're hoping by July we'll know. It's a little frustrating for, like, we hire our Title I tutors out of our title grant, so, you know, we're gonna tell them, like, yes, we want you to come back next year, but we don't
We have
know
the
for
money
sure how
for
much
you.
money we're getting. So it's, you know, the DOE in trainings has told our grant managers just to stay status quo. I don't think they're expecting anything, but I don't know that. So it's just they're delayed, so that's a little uncertain at the moment. Okay.
What other things do we have besides like the Title I tutor? Like
In
what
the
are-
title grant specifically,
in the,
or other
like
grants?
in grants, kind
In
of like
grants,
that.
you have the Title II grant, which you can use for PD. So we did a lot of our math consulting and training out of that Title II grant. So a lot of our PD is
Okay.
paid for from that, so it doesn't have to come out of the budget. You get a Title IV grant, which we joke about because it's hard to get anything approved in that, but it's like supposed to be for basically either safety or new and innovative programs. So that-
Defense?
It's a fence.
I don't think so, Mrs. Williams. That one is so hard to get approved and so frustrating. And then you never know, like there are some years there's a safety grant. They were doing a robotics grant for some time. Some of them are competitive, some of them are just awarded.
Okay.
1, 2, we don't get 3 because that's BLL. We don't have enough of a population to qualify for that. Is that it?
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
How much money is that usually altogether? Just an estimate? I know, I don't need an exact number, just ballpark.
Can I email you?
Yeah, just
We
curious.
have so many
Each one is
grants
different.
and they're all different.
Yeah,
And all my
one's like
districts are different.
And are they different every year, or they
Yes.
tend to be about, okay, so
No.
not always the same?
Some years, like I think
Are we talking over
4 years
100,000?
ago-ish, around that.
Around 100,000?
Yeah.
Between 90 and 100.
Because you used to be able to fund the math teacher position fully out of Title I. And years ago, it's down to like half of that now.
Oh, REAP. REAP is the other.
Oh,
grant.
REAP, that's right.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. For rural education.
Yeah.
And that's actually an easy one to work with.
Yeah,
They're-
they give
they're-
you, that makes it pretty easy.
Yeah.
But that's the grant that got the solar
Solar.
grant held up because
Yes.
we do, you
That
get
money
it,
from
and I
them.
think Epsom is the only other one that qualifies because it's a rural education access program or something, REAP. But because you got a REAP grant, that's what.
And that general assurance is like, it always looked like that?
Oh,
Because I looked through that, I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, every year we get it. And it's just a federal requirement. And when the federal government audits the state government, they, you know, like, where's your proof that these people are following the laws and that we signed away saying we will promise we'll follow the law if you give
And
us
they
this
added
money.
in the executive orders that were just
Yes.
put in place.
Yeah, they changed this year. You need to. Yes, thank you, sorry, I wasn't finished and then we moved on and I threw this down. Pay attention.
Okay. We'll move on to board reports. I don't see anyone from the PTO here. Executive board.
Yes, we had an executive board meeting and I forgot to write the person's name down that
Oh,
Is that,
I know it. I
is it
remember.
public now?
Yeah,
Did she
um,
accept?
There hasn't, no,
Oh.
well, there hasn't been an email sent out to staff, so I think I'll wait on
Okay.
that. But you can say that that a person was
A
hired.
person was
Yeah.
hired for the assistant superintendent position since Jess is becoming the new superintendent.
And Jess did tell me today that there was verbal acceptance of the position and that Friday the paperwork's gonna be processed and she'll send out an email to everyone,
Okay.
with the person's name.
And that was
Was
really the
tech
only
person
reason.
before that? Or I think we already did that.
Did we
Yeah,
do
that
the
was
tech
the,
person?
that was the board meeting prior.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the exec board was just for that one hire.
Oh, yeah, I think I hired the tech person.
You hired the
Yeah.
tech person. I
You
wasn't at
hired
that
the tech
meeting. You were at that one, I wasn't, so. So that's all we
And the
did at
tech
that
person.
meeting.
Cool.
Yep.
Prince. Principal's report.
Thank you, Kendra. The principal's report covers March 20th through April 16th. Our Read Across America events came to an end in March. We ended that Friday with a Read My Shirt Day. The readathon was very successful. The students read 113,172 minutes. They had to read over 100,000 minutes for Mr. Grieve to dress up, which is
Some sort of-
gearing up. We're not sure if there's gonna be a wig involved or a
Fourth
blow-up
graders-
costume.
Fourth graders would say yes. Let's see.
Yes, so that's to be still to be happening. There
They'll probably
there would definitely
It
be
better be
pictures.
pictures.
be.
Sup is
It's
better
still
than having to-
kissing a pig.
I was gonna say the same thing when Paul had to, was it Paul or you that kissed the pig? Yeah.
One thing you'll never see Mrs. Video kiss. You know, saying, I'll have pizza with kids, I'll read to kids, and will not kiss a pig. And I like pigs. So there were several $1,000s raised. As you know, Beth Mostu, our media library specialist, is wonderful about bringing in, that money is all raised to bring in visiting authors. We have a visiting author coming on Monday. Josh Funk will be here. And one of the things that Beth had arranged this year, every year we've done Battle of the Books where staff members read books, and she does the whole video and the whole 9 yards. And every year I've lost. Every year I've lost every year. But wait,
Do you think she's lost?
there was this year when Mr. Withy, as in Jack Withy, my son, helped me with my book for Battle of the Books, which was she had us all read a Josh Funk book so the kids could get exposed to his books. And at the all-school meeting that was referenced earlier, there was a big duel between me and Mrs. Davis, and guess who won?
Mrs. Davis.
I told you Mr. Withy was involved. First time ever. So first time ever. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And we read It's Not Little Red Riding Hood. I definitely needed his help because Josh Funk has all kinds of characters and voices, and so it was a lot of fun. That whole series was a lot of fun with Battle of the Books. Parks and Rec Hoops Classic also came to an end literally the entire month of March. This year was a big deal though, because I think it was their 25th year of running it, and it's just such a well-run event for this area. The rec teams that come and play, they do such a great job with the stage and the music and the lights and the announcements, and so we're just so happy to be able to host that each year for Parks and Rec. On Monday, March 24th and Tuesday, March 25th, we sent a team of middle school teachers with Mr. Grieve, along with Mr. Grieve, to the NELMS conference. NELMS is the New England League of Middle Schools. We've done that for the last several years, have sent teams of middle school teachers there, and when they come back, we usually have a sharing session for them to be able to share their key takeaways that they had from each of the workshops and conferences that they had attended. On Tuesday, March 25th, I have some PTO information here that they through the month of March, the PTO provided nutritional snacks to our students. And the third nutritional snack was delivered that particular day. It was that they've done that for a couple of years, and they have had some, this year they had a couple of donations, monetary donations, so they were able to purchase things that they might not have been able to purchase in the past. And Wednesday, March 26th, our sixth grade team held an information night for Mero Vista. As you might remember, last year, seventh grade has been going to Mero Vista the past couple of years. This happened after the pandemic because the field trips were so wonky. And last year, our sixth grade team decided they would be taking over the Mero Vista trip, so seventh grade went. Then there was, for a couple of days and nights, and sixth grade came up, they shared one particular day together. There was an overlap. Seventh grade came back and sixth grade stayed, so that will be their trip moving forward, including lots of fundraising. We also want to spread out the New York trip and the overnight science camp trip for fundraising purposes. So sixth grade has taken that back on, and they had an information session for parents and guardians that particular evening. We have had our March fire drill. Our April fire drill, I'm sure, will happen anytime soon. Mr. Dubiansky likes to sometimes surprise us. I begged him not to surprise us in March after our February emergency drill. That would have maybe produced a little traumatic trauma for some of the kids. So that one was announced. On Thursday, April 3rd was our annual talent show. A lot of fun. We had a ton of kids, all ages, even a ton of middle school kids this year, more than I've seen in the past. And that was a lot of fun, including pizza dinner that night. Raised a couple $100 to donate to the Deerfield Food Pantry. Friday, April 4th was our monthly all-school meeting. The fourth graders hosted and fifth grade shared. Monday, April 7th was our parent-teacher conferences. And thank you to the PTO for putting out a nice spread of staff treats. So in between conferences, staff could come down to the office area and have a little treat for themselves. This past Friday, April 11th, the PTO also held a small and tall dance in the cafeteria, decorated it lovely. Monday, April 14th was CRB, and I know Ellen will report out on
Yeah, I
that.
forgot my minutes, so I'll do by memory and you can add it.
Okay, perfect. I'd be happy to do that. Tuesday, just yesterday, we had a bus evacuation practice drill. Bus evacuations happen twice a year, where the kids just practice getting off the back of the bus and hopping back on the front. So they did a nice job of that yesterday. Today we had SAU leadership. We do that once a month with the whole SAU, assistant principals, special education coordinators, SAU staff, just get updates on things that are happening. Some things that are upcoming on Friday, April 18th, the Deerfield House of Representatives is hosting a Parents Night Out event.
Yes, thank you.
You're very welcome. I shouldn't say you're welcome, that was their idea.
I am taking advantage.
Yes, I saw that. I'm happy you are. So they decided they needed to do some fundraisers, get a little money to work with as their for things that they want to do in the schools. So this is a fundraiser for them. And parents or guardians can drop off was preschool, 4 or 5 year old preschools up to fifth grade, drop off their children, and I think it was like $8 for one child, 18, 10, 12. So they had prices for 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids. They have, I think they have about 20 or so families that have signed up. I sent another reminder today, so they were going to take up to 40. So this is a fundraiser for them. Parents are going to drop them off. Kids are going to hang out in the gym. There's going to be a movie playing and games. There'll be a bag of popcorn for kids. So Mr. McCabe will be here with a couple of other staff members to help support that. Also, as I'm talking about Deerfield House of Representatives, they did agree to come to the May 7th school board meeting if you wanted to have them come. So Mr. McCabe has spoken with some of them, and they'll have a representation here to talk about the things that they're doing. Monday, April 21st, coming up on Monday is our author visit with Josh Funk. It's also our paraeducator appreciation breakfast. We have that every year. That's been an annual event for as long as I've been here, probably even longer, I'm assuming. But it's a nice time for our paraeducators to come down, mingle with each other, not have kids around, have some nice treats. The special education staff always provides a delicious spread, give them a little treasure to show how much we appreciate them and the work that they do. On Friday, April 25th, we will have a squeezed in middle school dance. We do know that's the Friday before vacation, and but the 2 magnets really wanted to do one last dance with the kids, so that will be on Friday of April vacation. And then we go into April vacation, and then when we come back, it will be May. You know what happens in May at schools. We've got teacher appreciation lunch, we've got the art show, we've got turkey trade, we've got the skateboarding unit, we've got the book fair. So all the things that happen in May will take off once we come back from vacation. I do want to give a big thank you to Breezeline Communication. Breezeline Communication is funding the transportation for our 5th graders to attend Starbase in Pembroke. It was going to cost, so it's over a course of 10 days. And all of our 5th graders attend this Starbase program put on, it's a Department of Defense. Patty has, and you've been there, right? Have you been to Starbase?
I
Oh.
just saw the videos and talked to the person that runs it.
The 5th grade, they couldn't stop raving about it last year, and they're going earlier this year because they felt that a lot of the activities that they did at Starbase would have really helped with the science SAS testing. So they decided to go a little earlier this year. The only holdup is that it would cost about $3,000 for us to transport our students from here to Pembroke over the course of those 10 days. So Breezeline Communication is funding the entire bill, and we are so very appreciative of that. And this Starbase is the one who put them in touch with us, so they've done some nice work for us. The last thing I'd like to talk about is our kindergarten enrollment. We are up to 46 students who have been enrolled. 20 of those students are enrolled in our Monday, Wednesday, Friday preschool program. And we have 26 new enrollments, and we do have a potential retention. So we could be looking at 47 students enrolled for kindergarten, and that's so far this year. That's, we're in April. There's a lot of time for, as you know, last year we were kind of in the same place this time last year, and we ended up with more students. Just to give you some information about the current class that is our current rising kindergartners.
That we know about.
What's that?
That we know about.
That we
the ones
know
we
about,
actually know.
exactly. About 8 of our students are being served through special education. That means that they are receiving special education services and related services. We do have 2 students who have one-on-one paraeducators. We have a large group of students needing behavioral supports. Given the current needs of our rising kindergartners, we're really advocating strongly for 4 kindergarten classrooms next year. That would currently, if we kept it if it was at 46 or 47, we're looking at 11 or 12 students per class. But we also know that enrollment will continue to rise. We do have our kindergarten kickoff coming up on May 30th, and we do have a kindergarten screening coming up as well, which will give us a better sense of the students that we don't know about. We are in touch with Miss Lori over at the Deerfield Preschool. We know how many students are over there that are coming to us. Our preschool teachers are in communication with her about the needs of those students coming to us. So at this point, we are in a very similar situation last year in the sense of preparing our littlest dragons to get ready for school. And 18 students in a classroom has been very challenging for our kindergarten teachers. And the needs that are coming in, I think that Nancy and Ellen, being in education for as long as you were, you saw that the skills that kids were coming. There were kids that didn't know their alphabet, and kids that knew how to read. And I think the same thing is true that's happening currently. We are still seeing those disparities in students coming to us with different levels of skills. That's not necessarily the problem as much as the needs of these students, the behavioral needs, the trauma backgrounds that they're coming with. I think I've mentioned that we had 5 students in foster care this particular year. That was, those are the things that we're getting right now, and we are strongly advocating to go with 4 kindergartens next year. With that said, the current 4th grade teacher that went up to 4th grade, because we only had 3 kindergartens this year, is interested in going back down to kindergarten. We are in the process of interviewing for a position in particular. And with that said, if we end up going with 4 kindergartens, we would end up needing 2 elementary teaching positions. Because the position that was left open last year coming into this year, we would want to fill that. position. So that's where we're at. We've had a lot of conversations about space. You know, we currently have a second grade classroom that's moved into that fourth kindergarten. We have listened to the feedback about students going out to the modulars. I know that people feel strongly about having second graders out there. This particular class is a smaller class, so we have looked at alternative areas that we have in the building that could accommodate a smaller class for the year. Like every year, we are looking at how to utilize our space every single year. And you know, next year, because we have a smaller first grade class rising into second grade, there's still 40 of them, 40, maybe 41. And there'll be in second grade classes, which means there'll be about 12 or 13 in each class, which is still very small, but that is the anomaly class that we haven't seen a class like that in years. Graduated a class of 40 a couple of years ago,
44.
2 years ago, 44. Or was it last year? Last year.
And
So
that-
they do come along every couple of years. I'm not saying that they don't, but I am saying that it is unusual to have a small class.
And that will be next year's which class?
The class of 40 kids that will be in second grade next year.
Going to second.
They were in kindergarten, in 4 classes. There was 10 in each class. And then they went into first grade as a class of 40. And there's 11 or 12. Cannon is part
Yep.
of that group.
And my oldest son was in the other small
Other
class.
small class, yes, it might be you.
No,
Oh.
It's been a while. To be able to come to kindergarten is pre-kindergarten required, or can you go right into kindergarten? Yeah.
We're getting a lot of kids that aren't potty trained. I mean, it's things like that that you don't think about. And I think that is happening nationwide. I'm not just saying it's in New Hampshire, I'm not just saying it's a Deerfield thing. I think that these are the things that I'm hearing about, reading about, listening about. Kids are not as prepared to come into kindergarten as they have been in the past, and even in the past we've had disparities of preparation. So that's where we stand.
When you say there's 2 positions, so if,
So we took some action tonight.
Somebody.
Well,
personnel
And then
oh, that's the
shift
other, okay.
something, Yeah.
All right, that's when
Yeah.
you're saying the 2 position,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah,
because,
yeah.
so just one, okay, I got
So
it.
we're definitely filling one position based on the action you took tonight. And with knowing.
If there were to be 4
4 kindergartens, we would need to
kindergartens,
fill
then you would
a
need
fourth
to,
position.
so, yeah.
So how does that get decided?
That's a great question.
Oh, I'm asking,
No,
is
I
that
know you
something that
are.
we vote on, or is
Yeah.
that something you guys
It's-
decide?
It's budgeted for, the
Mhm.
board chose I think you voted last year, right,
Mhm.
not to fill the position. So if,
And we also voted to keep the position and. fill the
Correct.
budget
Yes, you
this
did.
year in
Yeah,
case.
And this budget season, you decided that you agreed
Yeah.
to.
So the money's there.
yes.
The money
It's in
is
the
there.
budget.
One-
For 4
well, for
kindergartens.
Oh, but
For
the
the-
one that
To
we,
fill the open position.
right,
It is budgeted already,
yes. The one we talked about earlier.
and that's an additional one. That's. So
But that's already in the
if,
budget as
right,
well.
that's,
obviously.
they're both in
Yeah.
the budget.
Right.
There's
They're both
no
in the-
addition to the
they're both
budget.
In the budget.
Mhm.
Right.
And to give a timeline, not being in education, this is
This is
the
peak
time,
hiring.
this is like when
That's-
you want to advertise, this is when you get the best of the best teachers.
This is when people are
The
looking
longer
for
we wait,
jobs.
we lose out on the opportunity for. better
We have interviews
candidates.
already set up for next week. We are interviewing. It's just a matter of we're interviewing for one position or 2.
And that's why we brought it up tonight, because if the board is gonna take action and not want that position to be filled, it really should be tonight's, because otherwise we've
Okay.
gotta move ahead.
I would make a motion to hire a 4th kindergarten teacher.
Does anyone want a second?
Second it for discussion.
Okay.
So that we can have some-
Discussion.
I'm afraid, the space needs thing is such a priority. So how do we, those are two kind of, that's a battle, right? It's like,
Yeah, to give you kind of an idea, so we currently in mod 300, that's the one closer to the parking lot. We have one that was last year a second grade classroom. So we have 2 third grades on one side for mod 302. And then this 300 mod is third grade on one side, and last year was second grade on one side. Currently, where the second grade teacher came in last year, that space is being used by our math specialist. So they have 4th grade. So there's 4th and 8th graders going out there throughout the day for small group instruction, etc. If we were to have the 4th kindergarten, we would have those 2 teachers then occupy a room. It's unusual. It's by the kitchenette. It's kind of smack in the middle of nothing.
not one of those closets.
It's no. It's kind of just like a room that it would suffice for. We've had the specialists in that room before. So currently it's used for just an open space for people to use that room. We have a sign out sheet, so people can go in and reserve the room per se.
Advisory goes in there,
Yeah.
small group work goes in there.
It's a little corner.
No, it's 131. It's it used to be that when I started, it was the teacher's lounge.
Teacher's room.
It was like literally, it was where my office used to connect.
So when you go in there, the kitchenette's on the left, around the corner.
Yes, there used to be 3 people in there.
So
Yeah.
you're talking about putting additional people in there?
No, there's nobody in there right now. It's not housing any. It's not used as an office.
So how
space
many
right
people, how many specialists are out in the modulars right now?
now. 2. Both.
And what's the possibility of, I know it's not the greatest classroom, but you have the classroom next to the cafeteria, that if you move specialists out, that would be a classroom. I know it's not the greatest because it's near the
Yes,
cafeteria,
yeah.
but-
And Nancy was in there for a few years.
Yeah, and it's separated.
Then when
I
you're
think the-
Nancy
I
and
think
it's
the
too
point,
loud,
though,
you go and
is
you tell the
you can
cafeteria
accommodate
it's
the
too
class.
loud.
Yeah.
You've had that
It's
class
not-
before.
Correct.
It-
So the
you
second grade
have it
class
again.
could go back in the modulars, and then we would move the specialists into a smaller space for theirs. That's what we would do. Knowing the feedback that we've gotten about having the younger students out there, we are considering where else we could put that smaller second grade class for next year.
I don't want us to get off
Yeah,
on
right,
space conversation.
right,
I
exactly.
want tonight at least keep it to the teacher.
But there is room. Yes, there
Yes.
is room, and we would love to make it work.
And there's no consideration of taking this second grade class and turning that into 2 instead of 3. That'd be 2021,
This class.
too many needs.
Not yet.
You think maybe in the future they might be able to go into 2 classes?
That's we've discussed that, yeah.
This year's
There's-
first grade class.
Right,
And there's still some more
because it's only 41
Right.
kids. yeah.
growing pains to get through.
So how many kids are in kindergarten right now?
18 per class.
Yeah, 18 per class.
54, I think, are 54 students in the current, which is about the more of the average size.
Across all grade levels, yeah, it's fair to say 52 to 54 is about the average. Our largest group right now is our 8th grade with 61.
The difficulty with kindergarten, so that you're aware, is parents aren't required to register by a certain date. So we, send out the notice that we're having kindergarten kickoff, and we hope we get as many people here as we can, but they'll trickle in. And they'll just show up to register their kiddos, and sometimes people they'll show up on the first day of school, like, I have a kindergartner, let's register. So those numbers are really difficult to predict, which is the problem every year.
Okay, so if you're saying that sometimes kindergartners come in because of course, not everybody has to go to preschool, and sometimes kindergartners coming in and they're not potty trained per se, right? Would it make sense? Is it required that kindergarten is a full day, or could you have them half day?
No, I think that's state law now, isn't it?
Is it state law?
I don't think it is.
Oh, it's not? Oh.
There's still
There
some
are
towns
some
that
districts
don't
where
have
they're-
a
I
half
think-
day,
yeah.
but
But that would set us back even more because their needs are so intense. That's why we're trying to get more services to them. If we only had them here half a day,
But-
would be even, would cut
Kindergarten
the
was
services.
half a day,
Some of them-
before my time.
Yep.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them are not equipped to do a full day. They're not quite.
So that would be made on a case-by-case basis, and in my 7 years here, we've not done that once.
Yeah,
We haven't had to do that once.
you mean go to a half day?
Right.
Right,
I
because
mean,
it's
we-
always been a full day.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a long time now.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, I just didn't know if that was
Mm.
something that could be thought about.
Mhm.
It might alleviate some of the space in a way, right? Because if you only had to have half the children half the day.
Yeah, I mean, I do think we need to think about the education of children versus just the space that they take up in the
Right.
building.
I understand that.
I could never support half-day kindergarten personally for all kindergarten. I mean, maybe if there was something special, because I just don't think that provides enough foundations for them to move up to first grade.
Not with the current expectations.
Correct.
And that's the other thing. I mean,
First
kindergarten looked
grade.
very different many,
Yes,
many years
first
ago.
grade. Yeah, it's not even kindergarten anymore. The requirements are like first grade requirements. Back in our days, what was expected in kindergarten is nothing like what's expected now,
It's not just come in and play and.
Right. which I totally disagree with. But that's unfortunately what has been required. Yeah. Because if we just focus on the socialization, it wouldn't be so bad. Anyway.
I mean, if there was required preschool, then we may not be in the situation that we are for
Oh,
kindergarten.
God, then
So I
that's gonna
just like-
turn into the first grade.
Correct, so then it's like, how far do we keep pushing back? Like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
then we're talking about the first graders coming in, not knowing their letters and their numbers and things like that, so. You know, I'm not in the kindergarten. I hear a lot of what's happening because I have a kindergartner. And it does, and I've heard a lot from, people in the school. I think it's very challenging for them this year to deal with the students. And, you always hear of education that K-3 is sort of the foundation of school and education. And I just feel like we're setting children up for failure because we're not giving them what they need to succeed in kindergarten. So, if we're focused on improving test scores and making sure that kids are building the fundamentals early, I think we'd be better served having 4 kindergartens where kids can get more individual attention. Otherwise, I do think, when we're looking at this in the future, I would love to see a line saying, this is when we move to 3 kindergartens. And if test scores go down as a measure, then I think that would be notable.
It's really hard. I hear what you're saying. I know that would make it easier, but it's really hard with these classes because there may be a second grade class where Kristen and Brian say, oh, those kids could be in 3 classrooms.
Yeah.
There may be a second
And
grade
test
class.
scores they're not the end all be all
it's hard
anyway,
to-
because some kids are
No,
just
I
not
understand
developmentally
that.
ready for some of this stuff, even though we're forcing it on them and expecting them to do it. They're not developmentally ready to be doing the reading that's expected.
I understand
math.
that, but when people are judging a school district and judging a school board based on test scores, we do have to respond to that, and we do have to continually improve. And I think if we're having 3 kindergartens is moving backwards.
I'll put this out here because I'm the one who fought for 3 kindergartens. I am actually okay with going 4 kindergartens. And the reason I'm thinking it is because the things that you just talked about with the kids not being prepared, not being potty trained, those are all issues we've never dealt with before. That wasn't the case. The testing does nothing for me. That doesn't move me at all because I think that's BS. But I do agree with that. And I think that if you're we did this year with 18, and if you're having a really hard problem with behavior problems, with all the different things that you're having in the classroom, it's too much for the teachers, then I guess I'm going to put forward that I would be okay with 4.
So the group though, this year, they'll remain as 3 classes going to first grade.
Yes.
So, and I know this isn't the time for discussion of it really, but I look at it too as, and I know placing paras is very different than when I was fortunate enough to, everybody had a para because you
No,
just
I
did.
didn't, but you
No.
did.
When
I
I
had
taught
older
first
kids.
grade. So,
Just
we
kidding.
all had that other adult to help support those things. My understanding is that kindergarten is sharing paras, like
Yeah, and
teachers
that's-
do not, there are times that a teacher does not have another adult in there to
Yeah.
help them with those
That's a good
things.
point, Nancy. if
And
there
I
was more
I
support.
sometimes think if you had that
Yes.
second adult in there all day long,
I'll clarify that for you. There is always a second adult in every kindergarten classroom because we do have a couple students with one-on-one paras. They might not be available.
that's the
supporting,
that's the
but there is
piece.
another adult.
That's the piece. It's different. I understand that. But a
one-on-one
one-on-one
is
is
not-
devoted to
yeah.
that one-on-one.
You can't rely on
and
them because they may
you
be
can't.
taking them out of the classroom, doing
So
something
if
else.
you've
and
got
they're not
another
always
issue
there.
that you're dealing with, you can't depend on that. I just think if having that second adult who's not assigned to a particular child or a particular, even if they were assigned to a group of children, that help. But I think that's where you run into having the bigger numbers and a lot of the issues is it just was nice to have that second adult to help with things.
Yeah.
And when they're jumping from room to room, because that's what they have to do, that makes it hard. Like all of a sudden, okay, I have to go over to room B now, and you don't know what's happening in room B. So you're walking in kind of like, what am I walking into? And then room A now has just the teacher and
I think
That's-
Chris
yeah.
makes a good point though about the behavior because
Yeah.
you
I
have kids coming into kindergarten that have no idea how to behave, don't know what to do. That's hard. Hopefully you've got them trained by the time they go to first grade that you don't have to have the 4 classes. You know, you can bring that down to a larger group. So I do see that. To me, that makes sense, the behavior issues. And I hear that from teachers too. I hear so many teachers that are getting out of the profession because they can't handle it anymore. They're so tired of the behavior.
And one of the reasons we have 4 classroom aides, and our current first graders were going, there was no para support for any of them, for any of those first grade classrooms. There wasn't students that needed para support, but there were support that they needed, but there was no, anyway. We put the 3 classroom aides one in each classroom so that at least there would be a second adult. So this year, yes, our classroom aides are in first grade, but in the past, we've had all 4 classroom aides in kindergarten, or we've done 2 and 2, right? You know, each year we make those personnel decisions based on the needs of the grade, based on the needs of the students, based on the needs of a lot of things. So this year, yes, there has been 1 classroom aide that's not assigned to any students. So this classroom aide is paid out of regular education funding. And 3 of the first grade classroom aides are paid out of regular education funding. They're not attached to a special education student. So next year, it might look a little differently. And every year we try to make that decision based on the needs of our students, based on the needs of the class, teachers.
I think one of the things that's lost here that we've seen is like you said, you used to have an aide in your room. You could go outside and use the outdoor classrooms, but when you don't have that anymore, you're not bringing. Our teachers are not even thinking about using that because as soon as they get out there,
Somebody has to go to the bathroom.
So, and now you're bringing the whole group back in. So where before you had your aide, that person's bringing them in, but that's no longer even a thought on some of our teachers' minds because it's just not practical.
It is used by the older grades though.
Yes, yeah.
It'd be nice if you could come up with a way for the younger grades to use it with, like if you have a shared para where they say, hey, we're going out, the para's gonna come with us this time, because boy, those kids need the outdoor classroom.
Who's not peeing behind the tree?
Some kids do.
They had a bucket out, they planted,
We had a bite on
they
it.
planted during COVID, they had a bucket, which then you have parents complain about it. And they have to stop.
Biohazard. One of my favorite Patty Sherman lines.
Yeah.
So you want us to decide
Well,
tonight.
yes, there's a motion to hire a fourth kindergarten teacher. Yes.
I will say also, I've been approached by multiple parents in the current kindergarten saying, I hope that we get first grades because the kids are like, there are such big issues in the kindergarten. And I was like, no chance. No chance will there be 4 first grades, is what I can tell you. But I think there is some discontent with the parents of current kindergartners about how big the classrooms are. Okay, if there's no more discussion, we will vote. So all in favor of approving a 4th kindergarten teacher, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Okay.
How did you vote? You can't abstain.
No,
Nancy hasn't voted
We
yet.
don't have
2-2 right
votes yet.
now. Yeah.
I have so many thoughts in my head about so many things, but. Ay. I'll go aye for now.
Well, it's not for
I
now.
know.
Not for now, it's a done deal.
It's aye for aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. 3-2. You can move forward. You know, we can reassess annually. During budget season, we'll talk about it again. All right. Anything else for the principal's report?
No, thank you.
Okay. Curriculum review board.
Like I said, I left my notes written in my car, but basically what I remember hearing is that, well, the literacy, we're gonna have a presentation next month by them. So they're coming in, they're working on the presentation. Next year, the curriculum that is up for review is science. Literacy was supposed to be this year, but they postponed a year because they needed more time to get that done. Technology and I think PE. It's technology and PE. But the other thing they talked a lot about is the Ed 306 standards. They're trying to align all their curriculum back to that, which is really pretty unusual in some cases. Like art has to go back and look at, I think it's 2001 or something crazy. They have to go back to those standards and now align what they've done back to those standards. Yeah, so that's like the big one. And then some of the others, math I thought was okay, and some of the others haven't actually done the work yet, so they're still looking at it.
Why do they have to go back?
Because of the new state standards.
I was gonna say Ed 306 got like totally.
The minimum requirements,
Changed.
yes, I've changed it.
So during the March PD day for the SAU, the last hour of the day was a job alike session. And so, you went, so if I taught, I did, I hosted the third grade teachers. So all the third grade teachers got together. We went over the updated Ed 306 standards, and we talked about, any area that you feel like you need to make sure you bring back. And the art and music were both shocked to hear that they had gone back to the standards of 2001 and the Ed 306. So
That seems crazy.
they both felt like their current curriculum was
Like that, I was in school then. Like, that's a long time ago.
They didn't feel like they needed to do a ton of updating to their curriculums. They just had to tweak.
Was there one of the ones I was wondering, I hadn't asked, but one of the changes, I know like in art, I think there was a lot about like diversity and understanding one another, and that kind of went into the art and music. Is that like gone now from the 306? You know what I mean? Like a lot of the art was to look at like different artists from different people's point of view, and yeah, so there was a lot of that kind of stuff in the new art curriculum that we saw last year, and I was just wondering if the state changed that so it's not.
They can't change the 306s because it went through rulemaking and a whole process.
But I mean, the 2001 standards, do they have that?
Oh, I thought you meant did they
Did the
change
state
the?
change
No,
it?
no, I meant do
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
2001
yeah.
standards have that kind of stuff?
Doubt it. I don't, do not.
Probably not. I would
Yeah.
imagine not. So to me, that's probably one of the biggest changes.
Did you say it was art and math? Had to-
No, art and music.
Yeah.
Well, all of them have to do it. They all have to look at the the 306. They have to go back and look at those standards. But for whatever reason, the art and the music were using the 2001 standards.
The framework, I'm just looking it up to see if I could find an answer for you. It just says K through 12 framework for the arts, 2001 edition.
Yeah.
Go back.
That is absolutely wild to
It
me.
is wild, because there was a lot of public educator feedback to make sure that this didn't happen, and it did.
That's wild. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Anything else for CRB?
That was the main, that was what resonated the most with me. So I don't know, Krista, did I miss something important?
I think that was good remembering.
Okay.
Okay. We will go to policies on page two.
The first few policies were the others from that Title IX update that got sent out, when the Title IX regulations went back to the old set. So those are on there, and those were, supplied by the New Hampshire School Board Association, following the law the way it is now. So those are on for first reading. So in 2021, the discipline rules changed, the laws changed. And I could not figure out why your policy was still in the drive for 2007. I had a note that it was on an agenda, and I don't know if it got dropped from the agenda, but we need to fix that. So the code of conduct and the student discipline policies need to be updated. Yours.
I saw that the JIC, do you mean
Yeah.
JIC, student contact? That's at March 2021.
No, it's JICD, which is what the School Board Association code was. and
Appendix
that's-
B, that's 2007.
Yeah, and yes, and
Yeah.
the new JICD from the School Board Association encompasses a bunch of stuff.
Okay,
you
so,
don't-
so
like,
both
you're
A
gonna get
and
rid
B.
of- You're gonna get rid of your like Appendix A, Appendix B,
Okay.
hazing, like it's all.
I was
in-
wondering about that because
Yeah.
it seemed like it was it kind of covered all the
Yeah,
same
it's
stuff.
all in that policy now, when the laws change, it's just one big policy. So that's what we'll be looking at. This is just the first reading, so you can take a look at those. And then one of them is the memorandum of understanding. And we have a draft of one. I don't know what happened to it, but it has to be updated. So what we would have to do is submit it to the PD and get their input and see if there's anything in there that concerns them, or if they're in agreement that that's what we need to do to follow the rules.
Okay, I'm a little confused.
The police department.
So I was, whatever.
Oh.
So,
Confused by the PD.
I was like, I can answer that.
so the JIC,
Yes.
that's 2021, is that supposed to be the all-encompassing that includes the Appendix A and the Appendix B?
Is it that
Or is it
one
the
the other one?
JID? No, it must be the
It's-
JICD.
Yep, it's the JICD.
Okay, so that's supposed to include Appendix A and Appendix B. So we just need to look at the JICD, make sure we're okay that it has
Yep, the
whatever.
School Board Association versions and
okay.
JIC too, both of those, making sure that those look okay.
Also the JICDR, suspension and expulsion, those all go into the JICD.
Yep.
Okay. I was wondering about the 2024, do we have Saturday detentions? Okay, because that's in the policy. I've never heard of that before.
In the Deerfield policy, not
It
the
said
School Board Association, right?
Deerfield, yeah, it said
Yeah, so
Deerfield
that's
on
all-
it.
That's why yours needs.
Okay.
We need some serious updating.
All right, yeah, because it had before and after school detentions, 1 hour.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
I
And
just
then-
wanna- go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just want to ask one more question. And now Nancy and I will do this and then, okay, but can I ask one question?
No, of course.
It said that you can enroll a student expelled from a school outside of New Hampshire for a violation of Gun-Free Schools Act? Seriously? Like, so somebody could be expelled because they violate the Gun School Safety Act and move here and we can let them come into our school?
There's a lot of different rules on expulsion now and hearing appeals and having to it
Yeah,
used to be
I
an
read all
automatic,
that,
like,
but-
you're done, and
Yeah.
the laws were drastically changed in 2021.
Okay, because
So
it was
we'll-
just a confusing, because one of them I
Yeah.
read and it said, well, if they had bullets and depending on their, then they were expelled, but then it said that they could be reinstated. Yes, I was a little confused by
Yeah,
it all.
it's not an expulsion forever.
All right, and you're saying that the hazing one also is included in the JIC?
I don't think there is a separate hazing policy now, I think. Okay.
That was 2017 and the old one was 2007, but it seemed pretty straightforward about hazing. Don't do it.
Yeah, if it's not in the other one, then you need a separate one.
Okay, so we'll
Yeah,
probably
I
need
don't know
that.
that hazing is in that one, I can't
No, it doesn't.
I
It's not
didn't
in there.
remember seeing it
So
when I
would
read
have-
it.
would have
So
that.
Nancy and I need to go over the JICD, make sure it includes all this stuff and we're happy and make
Yeah.
changes, like
It
we're not
should-
gonna have Saturday
was-
detentions.
It was based on
What's
the
your
new.
Well, that's what I figure. I'm like, do you have like, you're giving that as a stipend or something? So, all I could think of was Breakfast Club.
So the new one that is being worked on, it's just called JICD, nothing else, right?
JIC and JICD,
Okay,
the two that are the school board association
all
ones.
right.
All right, and they're gonna be separate. They're not gonna be
Correct.
together.
Yep.
Okay. And
Yeah,
we,
that's right.
we use the
That's right.
MTSS three-tiered support. I know you've talked about that
Yes.
before, but we do use that. And do we provide parent counseling and training? So, all right, anyway, we'll go through it and we'll ask you questions because some of the
You don't
stuff I
have to
was
look
like,
at the Deerfield version, just look at the school board association version.
oh,
Because
okay.
that's the one that follows the law. The
And then-
Deerfield
and
one
then
is
look at-
so old. and
Okay.
I wouldn't even bother
Well,
comparing it.
but they had recent dates on them, but did they just are they just the school board association, but they put Deerfield on it?
No.
Because they did not, like normally when you look at them, it says it's the New Hampshire School Board Association. These did
Mhm.
not. They said they were the Deerfield School Board. So I was
So-
confused.
Because we're publishing the agendas for the public, I asked Lexi to better format the school board association
Ah,
version to be
okay.
prepared. to
That's
be
why
looked
it
at.
says
Okay.
it's
Yes.
Deerfield. Okay, got
That's
it.
why.
Okay.
Got it. All right. All right.
Um,
Yeah, we'll have to get together.
We'll get
do that.
together.
Okay.
So if people have comments at this point, you can send comments to Nancy and Ellen. If you'll still have another
And then we'll be
opportunity to
talking to
do
you.
it. But if there's anything that jumps out on you, if the version's drafted in the drive currently, you can email it to them and they will incorporate or bring to another discussion at the board.
Are there any other ones that are going to be incorporated together or they're all separate to where we have them? Because we have AC and then we have
We have
ACR.
IC, ICD, and hazing, I think are the only three that are gonna be separate now.
Because we still have ACA.
Oh, yeah,
and
those are,
ACM.
yes, I'm just talking about the J's.
All right.
You need all those A ones, those came from the title.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So we'll move them all to second reading.
And if you guys have any comments, yeah, send them to us, please.
Okay, informational items, school board meeting schedule.
So Lexi drafted the school board meeting schedule for next year. He's based it off of, this year's schedule, so if you wanna take a look and if you see anything that there shouldn't be any conflicts with school vacations and other things. She did have the calendar side by side, but if you notice anything, just let us know and we can update it. Keep going.
Expenditure report?
Yep. So that was published in your, in the drive, and then we did start putting it on in the packet for the public too, so I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And Amber used to run it a couple of days before your meeting in the past, but now that we're publishing your packet, I asked her to just run it monthly. So the one that's posted now is for the month of March, even though we're halfway through April. So then on April 30th, she'll run it and we'll publish it. Just so you know that. And then she also sent out the voted default budget, so it's just condensed and it only shows the default. It doesn't have all the other columns with your proposed and all of that good stuff. So that's there for you, so that you have a copy. And one other thing I promised Jess I would mention is we got our special ed determination. It's sort of like the special ed report card, and there's a rubric, and we have all these areas that we get. You don't want to get a number, you want them all to be 0. And Deerfield had no needs of assistance and did a wonderful job in every area. So I just wanted me to make sure to mention that.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Great.
It's a great leadership in the
job.
special ed department.
Okay, public comment.
Hard work, though.
And so May 14th is the Co-Brown.
Yes.
Oh,
Meeting.
yeah, and
Just-
I did let, I let Karen know, or let the assistant know, whoever sent that email, Amanda maybe, that we have an executive
Right.
board meeting that night, so Jess and I can't go. And Amy Parkinson is gonna go as an administrator. Kristen has the spring concert that night.
I'll go.
Okay, great.
But I did have a question about that because they have you fill out a questionnaire and I can't bring the questionnaire because you gotta fill it out and then next page, like one question, next page. You okay with like filling it out?
You're a high school committee member, so
Alright.
I say
And I didn't know
yes.
if you wanted to go canon too or not, but.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Did we all get that though, or?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
So we can,
probably should only send 2 people.
No, I mean, in terms of that survey,
Oh.
we're only responding for ourselves, right?
I don't know. what the
It's kind of
survey
like
is.
for the board, but I
Oh,
can't
okay.
remember I didn't go through it. I can't remember. I did last year. I just filled it out. This year I thought, well, I'm not gonna fill it out until I talk to you guys.
I think
but
it's just asking.
it's kind of like
things
what
you'd be
questions
interested in,
are you
right?
interested
So I
in?
think it's
Yeah.
okay to just-
And then I know last time they kind of surprised me because they wanted each school to speak about what they're doing. I was like, oh, great. But that was okay. I think we're okay with that. Actually having these presentations by the different curriculums is really helping a lot because that's what a lot of the different schools talked about. I have a frog here.
That's great.
Sorry.
So, and Amy will be there. She's
The
Yes,
curriculum.
and she's the curriculum
person
coordinator,
and,
yes, so.
She'll be, at least there'll be administrative representation there.
Yeah.
But they understand that this time of year is pretty crazy, and we're doing a lot of hiring, so we can't miss exec board.
So only 2 members from each school board should be going,
To the Co-Brown.
May 14th.
I'll be at
You
exec
could
board, so.
post it.
I think
Some boards
some-
post it as
Yeah.
a meeting.
some boards, they actually have their school board meeting after it.
Yeah.
Like, I think last time 2 of the towns met and had their school board meeting after. So I think some of them had like their whole school board there. So, I
But
mean, I would say if
we'd
you're
have to
interested-
post
Yes,
it.
we do. If there's gonna
Oh,
be
I
more
see.
than
If we have
3.
more than 3, we have to post it as a
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
I get you.
Yep.
Oh, okay. 'Cause they actually had their meeting after.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So just let me, if there's gonna be 3, just let us know and we'll post. Did you wanna go, Missy?
I'm thinking about it. It's a
Okay.
Wednesday,
Yes.
correct? And it's not our Wednesdays.
Right,
It's not
right,
first or
correct.
third,
Yeah.
it's the second.
Yep.
If you want to go instead of me, let me know because I've
Ellen went
gone
last
for
year.
2 years. So what's that?
I said, yeah, you went last year.
I've done it 2 years in a row. So I'm totally okay with not going. I pretty much know what's going to happen.
We just need to make sure whoever goes is prepared to speak about the school. and what's going on
Right.
in
I was
the
gonna
school.
say,
Yeah.
Ellen should
yeah.
be, as the curriculum, board member.
It's fine. All I have to just put a notice that you guys are all gonna
Yeah.
be there. That's all.
I'm going to be there like 2 more nights because I agreed to judge their senior projects.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'm going for training and for the senior projects, but I don't mind doing it.
I'm up in the air.
Okay.
It's hard sometimes with scheduling,
Yeah,
so
just let me know because I need to post it ahead
Okay.
of time and when you decide,
I
you
will.
can email me or whatever.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so there is no public comment. So we do need a non-public session, so I'm gonna move into non-public session pursuant NHRSA 91-A:3, section 2, little letter C. Ellen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's a roll call vote, so I'm not public.
Yes.
Okay. That was it, we had one visitor.
Trish, I got you covered. You can
Thank you.